Picture this. A girl is floating in the sky above a hospital, covered in blood, glowing pink, like she swallowed a whole magical girl transformation sequence and it went horribly wrong. Energy bolts are ripping through the air, people are screaming, the emergency broadcast is literally saying kill the threat on sight, and the only person running toward this walking extinction event is her younger brother, an F rank, the lowest of the low, a boy whose own father told him he would never be a hunter. A boy whose power is chains, and everyone, literally everyone, said those chains were the most useless ability on the planet. But what nobody knew, not his father, not the academy, not even the boy himself, was that those chains were never meant to fight. They were meant to erase power. And the second they touched his sister, the girl who came back from another dimension strong enough to rival an S rank, her power vanished like it was never there. No technique, no training, just instinct and a pair of chains that the entire world wrote off as garbage. This is the story of how the most disrespected son of the greatest hunter alive walked into an elite academy full of monsters, geniuses, and returnees from other worlds and started flipping the whole system on its head. But before any of that happened, before the chains, before the chaos, before the academy, this kid was just a boy standing alone at his own graduation, holding someone else's phone, taking a picture of someone else's happy family, and pretending like it didn't destroy him inside. So let's rewind. Let's go back to the beginning. Back to when Sung Hyun-ji was nothing but a disappointment with a dream and a father who wanted him to bury it. So we open on a dungeon raid going absolutely sideways. The hunters are getting cooked and not in a cute way. These guys are screaming for backup like they're calling customer service during a Black Friday meltdown, but nobody is picking up. The monsters are winning, morale is in the toilet, and somebody is about to get folded into a casket. Then out of nowhere, a voice tells everybody to move. And before anyone can even process what's happening, a massive red attack tears through the creature like it was made of wet paper. The whole raid team freezes, because they know exactly who just showed up. The streamer in the group loses his entire mind, screaming at his live audience asking if they're seeing this right now. It was Shinbek Ji, the hunter who hunts other hunters. This man's title sounds like it was written by someone who watched Taken 12 times and said not edgy enough. The streamer is filming everything, fanboying so hard you'd think he just bumped into Prime Mike Tyson at a grocery store, says it's his first time seeing the legend in person. Cool, great. Meanwhile, his actual son is standing alone at his own graduation like a background character in his own life. This boy is looking around wondering what kind of father just vanishes on the one day you're supposed to show up and clap. A friend walks over and asks why he's spacing out by himself. Sung Hyun says his parents couldn't make it. Neither of them, not one. And then this friend, bless his oblivious heart, asks Sung Hyun to take a picture of him with his happy, complete, fully functional family. And Sung Hyun does it. He pulls out the phone, frames the shot, clicks the button, and smiles like his soul isn't leaving his body in real time. That is Olympic level emotional suppression right there. Because while dad was out playing action hero for strangers with cameras, mom was at the hospital doing what she's done every single day for 12 straight years. Taking care of his older sister, So Hyun, who has been in a coma since before this kid knew what loneliness tasted like. 12 years, no breaks, no vacations, no graduation ceremonies, just a woman sitting next to a bed waiting for a miracle that stopped feeling possible a long time ago. So Sung Hyun gets home and finds his mother. He calls out to her, voice low, already loaded. He asks where she was and she apologizes, but that apology hits like a match on gasoline. He explodes, starts yelling about how she couldn't take one day off, one single day out of 4,380 something to come watch her son walk across a stage. He starts going off about his sister, and the rant is building, and it's ugly, and then a voice from behind tells him to shut his mouth. Sung Hyun turns around and nearly swallows his own tongue, because standing right there in the living room, looking like a final boss who just fast-traveled home, is his father, Shinbek Ji, in the flesh, still probably smelling like monster blood. The man asks how his son dares to raise his voice at his mother, and the entire room turns into a pressure cooker. Sung Hyun clicks his tongue and turns his back, which in an Asian household is basically signing your own death certificate, but his father stops him. Asks where he thinks he's going with that attitude, then drops the line he's clearly said 100 times before. He tells Sung Hyun he was never made to be a hunter, and that he needs to give up. Now Sung Hyun, being the stubborn, emotionally constipated teenager that he is, does not give up. He takes all that rage straight to the training hall where his master, Ju Young Lee, immediately notices the boy is fighting like he wants to hurt something that isn't in the room. The two go at it with wooden swords, trading blows like it's a therapy session with extra steps. Sung Hyun creates distance and then does something that catches even his master off guard. He summons a blue mana chain. A glowing spectral chain shoots from his arm and wraps around his master's sword. For one beautiful second, it looks like the kid actually got him. Ju Young stares at the chain like, huh, interesting. And then with one burst of energy, he shatters it into a million pieces and decks the boy so hard he's on the ground staring at the ceiling, questioning every life decision. His master stands over him grinning, saying he almost had it, almost. Then he casually mentions that Sung Hyun's chain was weaker than something from a dollar store clearance bin. Even suggests the kid might fight better if he just stopped using his powers altogether. That's not advice, that's a verbal fatality. They go grab food after, and Ju Young tells him to relax, but Sung Hyun can't sit still. He's ranting about how his academy exam went, saying the other applicants were out there throwing fire and demolishing everything while he showed up with discount store chains and a dream. He says he felt like trash, that he'll never be a hunter, and that he needs his father to notice him. His master listens to all of this, then tells him to stop talking like that. He says a family should be a place of peace, not a battlefield for approval. Cut to Sung Hyun standing in the rain, and there's some guy on a stage screaming into a microphone about how it's been 100 years since monsters appeared on Earth. He's going off about returnees, people who traveled to other dimensions and came back with powers, calling them invaders and saying this world was never their home. The man is basically giving the "they took our jobs" speech but make it supernatural. And while Sung Hyun stands there getting drenched and listening to this hatred, his phone vibrates. He looks down. It's a message from the Hunter Academy. Rejected. Just like that. His master's voice echoes about home being peaceful, and Sung Hyun snaps. He throws his phone on the pavement and screams into the rain that this planet is already hell. That if anybody's looking for a place where the lost end up congratulations, they're standing in it. He collapses on the sidewalk, doesn't care about the rain, doesn't care about anything. This is rock bottom, and he's sitting in a puddle on it. But then the cracked, shattered phone starts buzzing. It's his mom calling. He picks it up, confused, and what she tells him flips his entire world sideways. He rushes to the hospital. The doctor is telling the family that what happened is unprecedented in medical history. After 12 years in a coma, his sister's vitals are perfect. She's awake. His mother is sobbing happy tears, calling him over, telling him to come say hi to the sister he barely knows. In a flashback, we see how this arrangement started. His mom tried to get him to take shifts visiting So-yoon, but he threw a fit about having his own life. He yelled that he didn't even remember the last time he talked to his own sister. His father told him to shut up, and then So-hyun in this tiny, terrified voice begged them all to stop fighting because she was scared. That shut everyone up real fast. So he agreed to 3 days a week at the hospital. His mom thought it would bring them closer, but the atmosphere was colder than a walk-in freezer. He'd just sit there reading a book, pretending she didn't exist, while his sister existed right there next to him, awake and alone and confused about why her brother hated her. But he never stopped training. That rejection letter lived rent-free in his head, pushing him harder every day. Then one evening, he walks into her hospital room and the bed is empty. Windows wide open. He panics, rushes outside and finds So-hyun sitting alone on a bench in the dark. He yells her name, scaring the life out of her, and asks what the hell she was thinking. She just says the room felt stuffy. They sit together in this painful, heavy silence until she calls his name and asks the one question that guts him completely. She asks why he hates her now. The girl says he seems meaner than she remembers. He gets defensive, saying that was 12 years ago and he can't even recall. She just lowers her head and says she figured. Then she starts unloading everything. She says she can't go back to school. She doesn't know what she did wrong. She woke up one day and suddenly she's alone in the world. And that word, alone, it hits him different because he knows exactly what that feels like. So for the first time, he actually talks to her like a brother. He tells her she's not alone. Their parents are still there. He's still there. She can make new friends. And while he's saying this, something clicks in his own head. He remembers that his master never graduated either, and a new fire lights up. Maybe it's not too late for him. Maybe giving up was the real failure. So Ha-yoon smiles a little and thanks him. He suggests they head back inside and casually asks how she even got out without her wheelchair. And that's when reality hits him like a truck doing 90. Because his sister isn't sitting on the bench, she is floating, just hovering in the air, surrounded by some kind of starlight magic, looking like a Studio Ghibli character who wandered into the wrong anime. He starts screaming, asking how she's doing that, and she casually explains she learned it in the fairy realm. You know, the dimension she apparently visited during her 12-year nap. While everyone thought she was brain dead, this girl was out in another world having a whole isekai arc. Everything clicks at once. The protests about returnees, his father's warnings, his sister isn't just awake, she's a returnee, one of the people the world is terrified of. One of the people that angry man in the rain wanted kicked off the planet, and she's his big sister. We get a flashback to better times. Their mom finding them covered in dirt, scolding them lovingly, sending them to bath time, family dinners, falling asleep on the couch watching TV. So Ha-yoon lying in bed, excited about tomorrow, not knowing that tomorrow was about to get canceled for 12 years. Because that night, a being of light appeared in her room called her little friend and told her she'd been chosen to save another world. Just like that, a little girl got isekai'd in her pajamas. She went to the fairy realm, had adventures, fought evil, and lived what felt like 6 months. But back home, 12 years passed. She came home to a world that moved on without her. The doctor confirms it. The government sends an agent who slaps a suppression bracelet on her arm and starts interrogating her about what the fairies taught her. She says she learned magic, survival, everything. The agent asks about the fairy queen, and So-hyun innocently says the queen was evil and she had to teach her a lesson to come home. The agent immediately translates that as she killed a queen. So-hyun panics, screaming that she would never do something like that, but the agent doesn't care. He says returnee abilities are dangerous and unpredictable. Every single one of them comes back claiming they were a hero. He tells their mother that So-hyun is forbidden from using magic and a government hunter will be assigned to watch her. Just like that, the girl who saved a world is now a prisoner in her own. Meanwhile, Sung-hyun picks up an envelope of his own. His academy evaluation came in. The good news, he passed. The bad news, they ranked him F, the lowest possible rank. His mana chains were deemed weaker than actual chains. Too fragile, too temporary, completely useless for combat. The boy got accepted and humiliated in the same paragraph. So-hyun finds him sitting alone in the hallway looking like someone told him Santa isn't real, his dog ran away, and his favorite show got cancelled all on the same day. She softly calls out to him, asks if she scared him earlier, and promises she's still the same person. But he cuts her off cold, tells her to leave. She apologizes, confused, asks why he's being so horrible. Then she stammers and asks if it's because she's a returnee now, and Sung-hyun loses it. He screams at her to get away from him, full volume, no filter. His sister freezes, completely terrified, and he turns his back and walks away, leaving her standing alone in a dark hallway for the second time in her life. He wanders the streets, but the image of her face won't leave his head, that terrified look. He's spiraling, wondering what the hell is wrong with him. When he realizes the crowd around him isn't staring at him, they're looking at something behind him. He turns around and sees his father, Shin-baek-ji, covered in blood, surrounded by reporters and police. His father spots him and asks why he's not with his sister. Then, with blood still on his face, he asks his son if this is the first time he's seen a dead body. He drops a number, 4 out of 10. That's the hunter mortality rate from last year, 40%. He says they all end up as meat for the grinder, no exceptions. And with this horrible scene as his backdrop, he asks his son if this is really the world he wants to live in. Sung-hyun can't say a word. His father finishes him off, saying he doesn't have and never had what it takes. Back at the hospital, the night is impossibly heavy. Sung-hyun stands there admitting that his father might be right. He's always been weak. His power is a joke. The world is a nightmare. He grew up watching hunters on TV like they were superheroes, but now that illusion is shattered and there's nothing underneath it. He doesn't know what to believe anymore. He doesn't even know what direction to walk. And then he looks up and sees something in the sky that turns his blood to ice. It's So-hyun, floating above the hospital, covered in blood, glowing pink. Her hair is lit up with this dark, unstable energy that looks like it's eating her alive. He stammers her name. She screams at him not to come closer. Her power erupts. Pink energy blasts tear through the hospital grounds. An emergency announcement declares the building is under attack. A dark portal rips open behind her, pulling her in. She's crying, begging him to stop her, screaming that she doesn't want to kill anyone. The announcement says that using powers in public carries one penalty: death, no trial. No questions. Sung-hyun panics. The cops will arrive before his dad. He looks at his own hands, the hands that summon chains weaker than a bicycle lock, and every rational part of his brain tells him to run. This isn't his fault. He can't do anything. He's an F rank with nothing, and for a second he almost leaves. But then a memory of who he used to be, a kid with innocent eyes and a big, stupid dream, stares back at him, and something shifts. He charges straight into the chaos. Energy bolts are flying, the portal is screaming, his sister is losing herself, and this idiot runs toward it. He yells her name, tells her to wake up, to snap out of it. And for one brief moment, she hears him. She recognizes his voice. His father's words about being meat for the grinder echo in his skull, and he screams back at the memory, saying he already knows. He tells her that this is what hunters do. They risk their lives for other people. He begs her to breathe, to try to control it, even just a little. She asks why he's doing this when she's not even the same person anymore. But inside her mind, a voice from the fairy realm whispers. It's the fairy who summoned her all those years ago, telling her what it really means to be a hero. It's not about power. It's about running towards someone who needs you and every part of you is screaming to run away. The fairy tells her that her home is here, that she belongs. The energy fades, the chaos dies, and Sung-hyun is on the ground, holding his sister in his arms while she sobs into his chest, cops everywhere, hospital in shambles. But she's alive, and he's alive, and for the first time, the chains he was born with actually did something that mattered. His father appears among the officers and calls his name. From a distance, watchers see the aftermath but can't understand what the boy just did. The incident gets covered up, swept under the rug by the authorities. But there's another story underneath the cover-up. We see So-hyun sitting alone in a cell. Trash and blood stains everywhere. A guard opens the door and says her visitor has arrived. She walks down a white hallway thinking about her mother's tears. When she sits down in the visitation room, it's not her mom waiting, it's her father. And the man does not do small talk. He tells her he's getting her out. He explains that a psychic read her memories and confirm what happened that night. The thugs at the playground attacked her first. It was self-defense. So Hyun is lost, doesn't understand the legal language, and keeps insisting she hurt people. Her father calms her down. He says the guys survived thanks to healers. He tells her the most important thing is that she didn't kill anyone, and So Hyun breaks down crying, thanking God, overwhelmed with relief. But here's where it gets dark. After So Hyun is escorted away, a woman with glasses asks Shinbaek how the conversation went. He says it went fine. She mentions the fine he'll have to pay, and he says it's a small price for his daughter's freedom. Then the woman asks if he's sure about all this, because the truth is, the thug So Hyun hit with her power, he didn't survive. So Hyun killed someone, and her father is choosing to lie to her about it. He just says he hopes she's strong enough to handle it when the truth finally comes out. Then the woman hands him a set of documents, papers related to his daughter, and whatever he reads on those pages turns his face into pure volcanic rage. He crushes the papers in his fist and demands to know who sent them. Meanwhile, we cut to some long-haired dude casually munching chips on a park bench while Sung Hyun is in the background having the worst target practice of all time. He's firing chain after chain at a row of cans and missing everything like a stormtrooper at a shooting range. The chip guy scoffs at him. Sung Hyun asks his master who this weirdo is, but Ju Young has no clue. Then the stranger starts talking, asking if Sung Hyun is really going to complain about distractions when real dungeons are 10 times worse. Sung Hyun gets heated, yelling that this random has no idea how hard he trains. But the man just turns around and says he's already seen enough. He admits the kid is athletic, which catches Sung Hyun off guard, then immediately adds that his technique is absolute garbage. He explains that nobody ever taught him about the inner energy that forms the chains. He's been throwing raw power like a caveman when what he needs is precision. To prove his point, the man flicks a single chip through the air and it nails one of the cans dead center. The chip doesn't even crack. Sung Hyun's jaw is on the floor. The man pulls out a strange artifact and asks Sung Hyun to touch his chain to it. Green light flares. The man smiles. Then he asks if Sung Hyun remembers what happened at the hospital. He was there, he saw the moment Sung Hyun's chain made contact with his sister, and in that instant her power just vanished, completely nullified. He explains that this is the true ability of the chains. Not binding, not fighting, sealing the powers of returnees. A power so rare and specific that nobody even knew it existed. But without training, without control, it's worthless. Sung Hyun demands to know who the hell this guy is. The man introduces himself as Chae Ji-hyung, Hunter, professor at the Seon Han Awakened Academy, and as of today, Sung Hyun's personal recruiter. He tells the boy that his recommendation alone is enough to get him in. No exam needed. He just has to make a choice. Sung Hyun doesn't hesitate for a single second. He screams yes. Take him to the hunter school. Chae Ji-hyung extends his hand to welcome his newest freshman, and right at that moment, a golden disc comes flying at his head. He catches it, and out of nowhere, Shinbaek Ji materializes with a blood-red aura, looking like he's about to commit a murder that would make John Wick uncomfortable. He glares at the professor and demands to know what kind of game he's playing. Chae Ji-hyung, sweating bullets, tries to play it cool, even cracks a joke about the man's wrinkles. Bold move when the other guy could literally erase you from existence. The two clearly have history. Chae Ji-hyung explains he's a talent scout and that both of Shinbaek's kids have unique, powerful abilities worth nurturing. Shinbaek shuts it down immediately, says his daughter is a child and can't handle a school like that. The professor fires back, reminding him that So Hyun is a ticking time bomb who nearly blew up a hospital. She needs specialized training. Shinbaek says the decision is his to make. Then he turns to his son and delivers the kill shot one more time, tells him he simply does not have what it takes. Chae Ji-hyung jumps in, saying that's wrong, that he saw the boy risk everything for his sister, asks if that courage doesn't count for anything. Shinbaek calls it arrogance, not courage, asks what made the boy think he could stop a power that outclassed him in every way, says it was pure luck that his chain nullified her energy. And when the luck runs out, what good is a corpse? The academy, he warns, will chew him up and spit out the bones. Sung Hyun is standing there getting disemboweled by his own father's words in front of everyone. All he ever wanted was to hear, "I'm proud of you," just once. Instead, he gets another reminder that he's worthless. But then, Ju Young, his master, shows up from behind and grabs his arm, tells him congratulations, says he sees the boy, sees the work, sees the potential, and then he looks Shinbaek dead in the face and tells the greatest hunter alive that he doesn't know a damn thing about his own son. Shinbaek whips around, furious, and accuses Ju Young of being the bad influence, says he's the one who filled the boy's head with impossible dreams, and then Sung Hyun slaps himself across the face, full palm. Everyone freezes. He thanks his master and says he can finally see clearly. He admits he used to chase his father's approval. Wanted to be just like him. But all his dad ever saw was a loser. Then he says that night at the hospital changed something. He finally realized there was never a reason to be ashamed of who he was, and with fire in his eyes, he screams that he's going to be a hunter even if it makes him and his father enemies. Shinbaek stares at him with an expression that could melt steel. His eye glows, and then in the most unexpected twist of the day, he says, "Fine, do your best." The kid nearly passes out, but the conditions come fast and heavy. First, Sung Hyun must join the student council within a year, or his father drags him home personally. Second, he must protect So Hyun at the academy. Make sure she adjusts, make sure she's safe, or the deal is off. Sung Hyun agrees instantly. Shinbek lets go and the boy almost crumbles with relief. After Shinbek walks away, Chae Ji-hong chases after him and says the student council condition is insane. Only the elite of the elite get in. An F rank has literally zero chance. But Shinbek says that's the point. If the boy wants to play hunter, he should expect the hunter's standard. Then he stops walking and says something that shuts everyone up. He confesses that he never wanted anyone, especially his own children, to follow in his footsteps. The legendary hunter, the man the whole world idolizes, never wanted this life for his family, and Chae Ji-hyung doesn't know what to say to that. Time passes, so Hyun receives her admission letter. March arrives, and the two siblings board a massive ship headed for the Seonhan Academy, an island school for the awakened. Sung Hyun trains alone on the deck, sharpening his chains, remembering that once upon a time he just wanted to be like the hero he saw on TV. Chae Ji-hyung watches from a distance, quietly wondering if he's the one who dragged this boy into a life he might not survive. On the same ship, a different story is waking up, literally. A white-haired kid named Subin Seal jolts awake from a nightmare drenched in sweat. In his dream, he was a child watching a hunter floating above a ruined city, pointing down at civilians, releasing a terrifying aura. A hunter that was supposed to protect people. His roommate, Purium, a second year, drops from the top bunk and asks if he's alright. Subin brushes it off, says he just doesn't sleep well. The two introduce themselves, and just like that, we've got another player on the board. In another cabin, Sung Hyun is showing So Hyun a bag full of knives he stole from their dad's collection. The girl panics and he tells her to chill. Then he awkwardly announces he's going to explore the ship, and So Hyun immediately calls him out, saying he'll get lost. He asks her what she'd do if a stranger offered her candy, and she doesn't know how to respond. He sighs, muttering that somehow he's become a babysitter. But looking out the window, he knows this is nothing compared to what's coming. Up on deck, a blonde second year named Woo Jin is giving a speech about how befriending the right freshman makes life at the academy way easier. But then he reveals his actual priority. He needs someone to introduce him to girls on the island. This man is not here for education. He is here to find love on an isolated campus with no escape routes. A true romantic. His radar locks onto a girl on the deck trying to feed seagulls with shrimp chips. The bag slips from her hands, and before it can hit the ground, Woo Jin teleports in like a K-drama lead and catches it midair. Hands it back with a smile. The girl, So Hyun, calls him a hero, and this man's heart rate spikes so hard you can practically hear the cardiac monitor. He tries to play cool, she doesn't understand his vibe at all, and somewhere a seagull goes hungry because those chips went straight to this poor boy's circulatory system instead. Purium watches from a distance and notes that Woo Jin got held back a year because the academy doesn't play around with grades. Subin makes a comment about how some people spend fortunes to stay enrolled, and Purium explains that a C-in-hand diploma opens so many doors that people will literally pay double tuition for another shot. Subin's expression hardens. He flashes back to the Nightmare Hunter and says quietly that from what he's seen, not everyone who calls themselves a hunter deserves the title. Then Purium spots Woo Jin leading So Hyun to a quieter part of the ship and calls Subin over to investigate. Meanwhile, back in cabin 105, Sun Hyun is reading peacefully when his sister bursted, dragging Woo Jin behind her, looking terrified, screaming about a dangerous stranger who gave her chips and kept asking if she had a boyfriend. Woo Jin is mortified. She adds that he touched her hand without permission, and Sun Hyun's face goes dark. Like, I'm about to catch a case on this boat, dark. Next second, the cabin door explodes open, and Woo Jin goes flying into the hallway. The boy is on the floor begging for mercy while Sung Hyun comes out swinging. Purium is trying to break it up. Subin arrives just shaking his head. And then the truth comes out that So Hyun was in a coma for 12 years, making her mentally still a kid, and Purium nearly strangles Woo Jin on the spot, screaming that the girl is a child and he needs to get on his knees and apologize. After the dust settles, they're all sitting in the cabin. Apologies are exchanged. Purium finds out Sung Hyun and Subin are the same age. Subin introduces himself properly, shaking hands, saying it's nice to meet him. The group starts walking through the ship together, and Purium asks Sung Hyun about his favorite hunter. He says it's probably his dad. The probably makes Purium curious. Then Subin catches the family name and his whole demeanor shifts. He asks point blank if Sung Hyun is related to the hunter of hunters, Shinbek Gi. The memory of that floating nightmare hunter comes crashing back into Subin's mind like a freight train, and Sung Hyun, not knowing what kind of bomb he's about to set off, calmly confirms it. Yeah. The legendary Shinbek Ji is their father. The group completely loses it. Purium and Woo Jin are screaming like they just met a celebrity's kid at a house party, fanboying so hard you'd think Sung Hyun just told them his dad was Goku. But while everyone else is hype, Subin's face is doing something very different. That name doesn't bring excitement. It brings a childhood trauma flashback so violent his heart is doing drum solos in his chest. The scene cuts to this imposing shot of Shinbek Gi looking like a god among mortals, and suddenly everyone on the ship is staring at the siblings like they just found out the quiet kid in class is royalty. Pyrium admits that Shinbek used to be his biggest hero, says he dreamed of being a hunter when he was younger. Sung Hyun asks if that means he gave up on it, and Pyrium explains he's an engineering nerd now because his E rank made the hunter path impossible. Sung Hyun hears E rank and immediately thinks, bro, I would kill for an E rank, but keeps his mouth shut about his own F rank situation. Smart move, except his sister has absolutely zero concept of reading a room, so Hyun just blurts out that her brother got into the hunter class with an F rank. An F rank. She says it with the same energy as someone announcing they brought snacks to a party. The entire group goes silent. Sung Hyun's soul exits his body. He tries to deny it, stammering, waving his hands, but So Hyun is nodding along, confirming everything like a prosecution witness. This man grabs his sister's head with both hands and starts scrambling her hair like he's trying to factory reset her brain. He's shaking her around, yelling at her to shut up while the poor girl is spinning like a washing machine. Pyrium has to physically intervene. Then he says something that actually lands. He tells Sung Hyun that rank doesn't matter and that anyone can be a hunter with enough hard work. The words hang in the air. Subin watches quietly, and for just a second, there's something like respect in his eyes. The ship sails on. People are hanging out, vibing, enjoying the cruise to murder school. But Sung Hyun is wandering the deck alone, bored out of his mind. When he spots Subin leaning against the railing, staring at the ocean like it personally wronged him, he walks over and asks if the white-haired boy is seasick. Subin says something like that, without even turning around. A seagull lands on the railing between them, and for one peaceful moment, these two future enemies just stand there watching the water. Then Sung Hyun asks the big question. What made Subin want to be a hunter? He starts to answer with my father, and Subin immediately shuts that down. He doesn't want the rehearsed answer, he wants the real one. Sung Hyun gets uncomfortable and admits he's never actually thought about it. Subin just listens, stone-faced. Sung Hyun fumbles through some general talk about people who get into the hunter life without thinking, and Subin agrees, saying most of them are just chasing fame and clout. He says they don't understand the weight of what they're signing up for. With great power comes great responsibility, and he can't stand hunters who treat it like a game. Sung Hyun turns the question back on him, and Subin gives an answer that's almost painfully sincere. He says he wants to save everyone, not just the lucky ones. Not just the ones who can afford protection. Everyone. Sung Hyun nods along while scrolling through his phone, which is honestly kind of disrespectful, and Subin notices. That's when he drops the warning. He tells Sung Hyun straight up that he doesn't belong at the school. Sung Hyun's confusion is instant. Subin explains that awakening a power is basically winning the cosmic lottery, and once your rank is set, you're stuck with it. Fate doesn't do upgrades. Then he goes for the throat. He accuses Sung Hyun of riding his daddy's wallet into the academy. Says he bought his way in with family money and connections. Sung Hyun fires back, insisting his power just manifested late, but Subin isn't buying it. He says the ability was always there, hidden, and Sung Hyun just got lucky finding it. He adds that maybe the power is special enough for a recommendation, but in the end, luck is the only thing separating any of them. He says everything in life comes down to chance, and effort is just a nice story people tell themselves. Sung Hyun gets heated and tells him to cut it with the anyone can make it pity party reversal, and that is when Subin's composure cracks. He explodes, screaming that some people train until their bodies break and still have to walk away with nothing. The flashback hits the moment Sung Hyun casually said rank doesn't matter, a throwaway comment that clearly stabbed Subin in a wound that never healed. Subin calls Sung Hyun more of a child than his own sister, and that's the line. Sung Hyun throws a punch with everything he's got, but before the fist connects, something invisible materializes in front of Subin and deflects the blow midair. The impact sound startles everyone on deck. Subin plays it off, saying Sung Hyun just tripped, but our boy's on the ground trying to figure out what the hell just stopped his fist. It was like punching a wall that didn't exist a second ago. Subin looks down at him with pure contempt and tells him he's a disgrace to the hunter community, turns his back and starts walking away with a final warning to give up on the dream. But then blue chains erupt from the deck and snag Subin's ankles. The white-haired boy goes down hard. So Hein, somewhere nearby, innocently asks if people are throwing banana peels around. Subin is on the ground, clutching his leg, furious, and Sung Hyun stands over him, asking if he still thinks it was luck that got him into the academy. Subin bites back sarcastically, saying maybe he won the lottery. But Sung Hyun yells that it doesn't matter how he got here. Nobody gets to tell him he doesn't have the right to chase what he wants. Subin smirks through the pain and warns that with an F rank, making his life miserable will be the easiest thing anyone's ever done. So Sung Hyun does what any rational, level-headed person would do. He challenges Subin to a fight. Tonight, midnight, night falls. The storm hits. Rain is hammering the ship so hard it feels like the ocean is trying to climb aboard. Meanwhile, So Hyun wakes up from a dream, tears in her eyes, hearing a voice promising they'll meet again someday. She calms herself down, realizes it was just a dream, and then notices her brother's bed is empty. So she grabs her phone and heads out into the dark hallway looking for him like a worried parent whose teenager missed curfew. Out of nowhere, Roojin pops up and scares the life out of her. She screams. He tells her to keep it down and asks what she's doing wandering around in the dark. She flips it right back, asking what he and his boys are doing sneaking around. Woo Jin explains they're heading to another cabin for a get-together and invites her along. Purium isn't sure about it, but Woo Jin says it'll be a good chance for her to meet people. So Hyeon lights up and says yes immediately, completely abandoning her brother's search like it never happened. Priorities, they walk into the cabin and there's already a little party going on. Some guy in the middle is telling a story, students are laughing, snacks everywhere, and then a pink-haired girl spots them and tells them to come in. The second Woo Jin sees who it is, he freezes, tries to reverse out of the room like a car that just pulled into the wrong driveway. His friends ask what's wrong, and he whispers screams that nobody told him she would be here. But So-hyun is already inside, laser focused on the snack table, completely oblivious to whatever drama is unfolding. Woo Jin reluctantly sits down, and the pink-haired upperclassman, Miju, gives So Hyun this smile that's about 30% friendly and 70% I'm already judging you. Purium watches the whole exchange with suspicious eyes. He asks So Hyun about her brother, and she says he was already gone when she woke up. That clicks something in Purium's brain. Subin is also missing, and something weird happened on deck earlier. He starts putting it together. Cut to the basketball court in the pouring rain. Sung-hyun is standing under an umbrella, and Subin shows up wearing the world's most absurd oversized raincoat. Sung-hyun roasts the outfit immediately. Subin corrects him, saying it's a poncho. Sun-hyun says he knew that. He did not know that. He then asks if Subin is seriously going to fight dressed like a walking tent, and Subin fires back that an umbrella is even more useless in a real fight. Fair point. The two stare each other down, rain streaming between them, and Subin asks one more time if he's really serious about this. Then he summons a cube of water that hovers next to him like a pet, crackling with energy. Sung-hyun answers by manifesting his blue chains, wrapping them around his fist. Subin explains that with the rain and the ocean all around them, his water spirits are at maximum power. Sung-hyun's face goes pale because he just realized he challenged an aquatic-type user to a fight in the rain on a boat. This is like challenging a fish to a swimming contest. Subin gives him one last chance to walk away. Sung-hyun throws the umbrella aside and says Subin started this. The water cube reshapes and launches a tidal wave straight at him. He dodges at the last second, barely, and Subin actually looks impressed. Sung-hyun swings his chains with everything he's got, and Subin blocks it with a wall of water, admitting the hit wasn't bad. Then he shatters the chains with a single blow and calls him a loser, says the chains are weaker than a bicycle lock. Sung-hyun realizes Subin is running multiple water spirits at the same time. The power gap isn't just big, it's an ocean. Subin mocks the chains, saying they can't hurt anyone and they can't protect anyone. They're as useless as the person who summoned them. Sung-hyun is panting, exhausted, barely standing, and Subin says this just proves he doesn't belong at the academy. But our boy doesn't stop. He charges straight in, dodging water blasts, spinning his chain for another strike. Subin asks if he's really going to use the same move again. Points out he hasn't even had to take a single step this entire fight. The power difference is embarrassing, but Sung-hyun smirks and says that's exactly what he wanted. A chain erupts from the ground behind Subin and wraps around his ankles. Subin's eyes go wide. He screams, "Not again," as Sung-hyun yanks him off his feet and slams him face first into the metal railing. Subin demands to know if he's just going to use the same trick forever, and Sung-hyun shrugs and says yeah, it's the only move he knows. He stands over Subin and taunts that the mighty water spirit user doesn't look so powerful from down there. Subin snaps back that Sung-hyun isn't exactly impressive either. Then Sung-hyun drops the line that actually stings. He tells Subin to look at himself. He just got his ass handed to him by an F rank. Subin has absolutely nothing to say to that. The silence is deafening. Then his expression changes. He admits the kid has a point and says it's time to stop holding back and fight for real. Sung-hyun's cocky grin vanishes instantly. Meanwhile, back at the party, we cut to Woo Jin screaming in excitement because he just pulled an SS rank summoner in some kind of card game. A girl says he got lucky and he humbly agrees it was beginner's luck. So Hyun has no idea what this game even is. She compares it to Monopoly, which gets her the most concerned stare in gaming history. Urium explains it's a game specifically designed for the awakened. It scans your abilities and generates a character based on your power. Purium tries it and gets a B-rank mage that apparently looks just like him. They explain these games are actually used for combat training, which makes So-hyun realize why her brother packed a console in his bag. Then Woo Jin invites her to play. She puts her hand on the scanner, nothing happens. Dead silence, no glow, no character, no anything. She asks why hers isn't working and Purium is speechless. Woo Jin says he's never seen this before. Someone suggests her power is too weak for the device to even register. Then an error message pops up. System cannot analyze abilities. The device starts re-evaluating, and when the result comes back, the entire room goes quiet. The game identifies her as a potential returnee and assigns her a hidden class. Dragon Hunter. The room erupts. Woo Jin gets right in her face asking if it's true. And just like that, the secret Chae Ji Hyung specifically told her to keep hidden is out on the table at a casual card game party. In a flashback, the professor warned her that returnees are treated like ticking time bombs. Society fears them. Students would turn on her. Knowing the truth would put a target on her back the size of the moon. But here in the present, Woo Jin isn't scared, he's fascinated. He asks what it's like being taken to another dimension. The others crowd around, excited, curious, treating her like she's the most interesting person on the ship. One of the girls says she doesn't care that So-hyun is a returnee. Another asks if she had to defeat a demon king to come home. So-hyun gets emotional, eyes watering, because for the first time people aren't looking at her with fear or suspicion. She bows and asks if they really think it's cool, and they do, so she decides to share her story. But then another girl casually asks if returnees aren't afraid to get their hands dirty with blood, and that word blood flips a switch in So-hyun's brain. The memory of that night at the playground rushes back. The spell, the hole in the man's stomach, her hands covered in someone else's blood, the smile vanishes from her face. Cut to the basketball court. Rain pouring, blood dripping from someone's knuckles onto the wet ground. Subin stands up and admits something unexpected. He says he knows what it's like to be more skilled than your opponent and still lose, to have every advantage and still end up in the dirt. Sun-hyun gets up angry, but Subin tells him not to beat himself up over it. He says the universe is unfair. Effort can't beat genetics. Some people quit because of a low rank while others are handed everything at birth. Hard work has a ceiling, and pretending otherwise is cruel. He warns Sung-hyun that the monsters at the academy will be infinitely worse than anything he's faced. The only lesson waiting for him is suffering. But Sung-hyun cuts him off. He asks if Subin thinks his father is some naturally gifted S-rank prodigy. Subin acknowledges that Shinbeki started below a rank but clawed his way up to clearing S-level dungeons, something almost nobody has ever done. Sung-hyun's voice cracks as he admits he hates giving his father credit, but the man saved countless lives through sheer effort. He screams that his father worked himself half to death to become what he is. It wasn't luck, it wasn't talent, and he tells Subin to never tell him what he can and can't achieve. Subin pauses. Then he asks if Sung-hyun knows so much about his father's career. Maybe he's heard about the S-rank portal that appeared in Mappo 7 years ago. The shift in Sung-hyun's face is immediate. He yells that it has nothing to do with their fight. But Subin keeps going. He says not everyone who died that day was killed by monsters. He reveals that a hunter killed civilians during the chaos. Sung-hyun tries to defend his father, saying there was no other option in that situation. And then Subin says the line that changes everything. He screams that his sister didn't have a choice either. She was just a child, and Shinbeki killed her. Sung-hyun can't breathe, can't speak, can't process. Subin stares at him with 7 years of hatred burning in his eyes and asks what's even the point of a hero who doesn't try to save everyone. Then he demands an answer. What kind of hunter does Sung-hyun want to be? Back at the party, the girl is still pressing So-hyun about blood. Purium tenses up. The girl asks directly if So-hyun is comfortable with violence, and the poor girl is stammering, panicking, completely cornered. She screams that she needs to use the bathroom and bolts out of the room like the building is on fire. Mayu laughs at the pathetic escape and asks Purium where he found this girl. He tells her to ease up. Miju pushes further, asking what class So-hyun is in, expecting maybe engineering. When Woojin and Purium reveal she's in the Hunter division, Miju's eyebrows shoot up. She gives this nasty little grin and says things are going to get very rough for the newbie. Then she turns to the room and reminds everyone that the Hunter class doesn't just teach you how to fight monsters. The implication hangs in the air like smoke. Meanwhile, Subin's voice echoes, saying hunters are killers who sometimes have to take lives. Miju doubles down, saying everyone at Cyanhan knew the deal when they enrolled. The room goes dead quiet. Then Miyu asks, with that same wicked smirk, if anyone wants to bet on how long the new girl lasts. Outside and alone, So-hyun is curled up wondering why she ran. She thinks she could have just said she's never killed anyone, and it wouldn't even be a lie. But every time she tries to think about that night, her chest tightens until she can't breathe. The images of the fallen attackers haunt her. She feels like she doesn't belong anywhere. She misses the fairy from the other world. She wonders if she'll ever make a real friend, and then a voice calls out to her. It's Dan-mo, the girl from the party, waving and smiling like she's just happy to see her. She introduces herself properly, and So-hyun does the same, still shaky. Dan-mo asks if she's alright and invites her back inside, but So-hyun shakes her head. Dan-mo says she was excited to see a hidden class for the first time, and So-hyun feels guilty. She says she tried her best, but she doesn't know what to do anymore. Every memory just hurts. That's when Dan-mo says something that stops her cold. She reveals that she almost killed someone once too. Her powers manifested out of nowhere in a classroom. Her friends were badly hurt. But she tells So-hyun that feeling guilty forever doesn't fix anything. The only thing that matters is making sure it never happens again. So-hyun has a flashback to the fairy realm. She remembers a creature named Shion and a giant rock that was blocking their path. She asks Shion how they moved it, and Shion said they didn't. They just talked to it. The rock was crying, waterfalls pouring from its stone eyes, because it was overwhelmed with sorrow. Shion spoke to it in the same language of sadness, shared its pain, and the rock felt understood. It just rolled away on its own, leaving a trail of tears in the snow. Shion taught her that everything in the world, from people to rocks to monsters, sheds the same tears. And that's how you connect with someone. You share the pain. Danmo says the same thing in the present. That's how people understand each other. That's how friendships begin. So Hyun finally smiles. She thanks Danmo for everything. Danmo grabs her hand and promises nobody will bother her with stupid questions anymore. But then an explosion of water rocks the ship. They peek through a door and hear shouting, so Hyun recognizes her brother's voice. He's defending their father, saying he had no choice during the Mappo incident. But Subin is screaming back, furious, saying his sister was just a child and Shinbek-gi killed her. The words hit So Hyun like a freight train. She can barely hear. She can barely think. She's trying to piece together what Subin is accusing her father of. And when it clicks, when she realizes her dad might have killed an innocent girl, her entire world tilts sideways. On the court, Subin demands his answer. What kind of hunter does Sung Hyun want to be? Our boy is silent for a long time. Then he speaks. He says he wants to be the guy who saves everyone. But he immediately admits he never thought about it before right now. His real reason for being at the academy has nothing to do with saving people. He says most students there have selfish motivations. Some just want to make friends at a new school. And no matter how small or stupid a goal seems, to the person chasing it, it's the most important thing in the world. Nobody has the right to judge someone else's reason for being there. Then he tells Subin that deep down, the two of them aren't that different. Subin loses it. He screams that they are nothing alike. He summons his water weapons and charges, so Hyun screams from the doorway, but Sung Hyun flips the momentum, grabs Subin, and slams him into the ground with everything he has. Subin activates a water crystal that starts glowing with terrifying power. The energy builds until a pillar of blue light erupts from the ship and cuts through the storm clouds. A flash blinds Sung Hyun, and Subin's spirit weapon cracks him across the skull. Sung Hyun hits the deck hard, but Subin's power is flickering. One of his water spirits is dissolving, his strength is draining, and that's when Sung Hyun sees it. There's a bracelet clamped on Subin's wrist, the power restrictor, the one he stole from his father's gear. He slapped it on Subin during the grapple, and now the S-Rank's abilities are being sealed in real time. With Subin's powers fading, Sung Hyun lands a clean punch to the face that sends him sprawling. But Subin gets back up, and the two of them abandon abilities altogether and start throwing hands like two drunk idiots behind a bar at 2 a.m. Raw fists, no magic, just rage. From the doorway, So Hyun and Danmo are watching in horror, not knowing what to do. Then Purium shows up, sees the chaos, and screams at them to stop, yelling this isn't Pirates of the Caribbean. Nobody listens. Purium realizes the water blast could literally sink the ship and tells So Hyun they need to intervene. She says she'll break it up. He asks how. She says she doesn't know. He warns her it's like walking into a gunfight unarmed. In her head, she imagines herself heroically disarming both fighters. That's dead. In reality, she has no plan whatsoever. But Purium suddenly has an idea. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a straight-up energy pistol glowing with blue light. So Hyun's mental image immediately upgrades to a full-blown Mexican standoff with everyone pointing guns at each other. A gunshot rips through the rain. Both fighters stop dead. Purium is standing there with the gun pointed at the sky, saying at least that got their attention. He screams at them, asking what their problem is and why they're using their powers in a stupid brawl on a moving ship. The two boys stare at him, completely stunned that the quiet engineering nerd was strapped this whole time. He scolds them like a disappointed parent, saying they could have hurt someone or put a hole in the hull. Both fighters look away like guilty children caught stealing cookies. Purium sighs and asks the universe why he's always surrounded by idiots, and then a familiar voice agrees from behind him. It's Professor Che Ji-hung, casually reminding everyone that Magicore devices are forbidden on campus, even for research purposes. With a pleasant smile, he congratulates all three of them on earning punishments before the semester even officially starts. Sung Hyun wants to evaporate. Next morning, the ship arrives at the island. Woojin walks up to the group and says he has to give credit where it's due. Getting suspended before you even step foot on campus is a truly legendary level of delinquency. Subin quietly apologizes to Purium, who says it's his own fault for pulling the gun. He explains he was supposed to deliver it to a professor, which should reduce his punishment. But for the two fighters, their consequences are going to hit different. Purium tells them to head to their dorms, and so Hyun asks if he's not coming with them. They explain the island has multiple dorms spread across the campus. Sung Hyun pulls out his phone to check their assignment, and when he reads the result, his face and Subin's face share the exact same expression of disbelief and horror. They got the same dorm. Because of course they did. A woman in a tracksuit welcomes them to Poppy Hall and introduces herself as Do Yoon, their dorm supervisor. Danmo introduces herself too. So Hyun is ecstatic when she realizes Miyu, the pink-haired menace from the party, is not in their building. Then Danmo hugs her from behind, screaming that they're roommates. Do Yoon tells everyone to load the car, and so Hyun thinks this might actually be a great start. Best semester ever, she declares. We get a quick history lesson. Back during the era when monsters and rogue awakened were tearing society apart, some genius scholar decided the answer was education. He built a secret school on a remote island off the southern coast. That school became Seonhan Academy, and on the surface it looks like any quiet private campus. But in reality, the entire island is the campus, a full-blown academic city with the best training equipment, the deepest information archives and facilities that make other schools look like community centers. Every aspiring hunter in the world dreams of getting in, every single one, except So Hein, who doesn't even know the school's reputation and is currently celebrating the fact that she learned to tie her hair up by herself. Sung Hyun appears at the door and tells her they're going to be late for the entrance ceremony, and just like that, semester 1 officially begins. Entrance ceremony day. Sung Hyun is waiting outside Poppy Hall when his sister finally shows up. He asks where Subin is, and Danmo explains he left early because he had to be at the ceremony. Sung Hyun scoffs, remembering the guy literally got a warning before he even touched the island, but Danmo asks if he hasn't heard. Subin Seal is the freshman representative. He's already on stage giving a pledge on behalf of every new student. Sung Hyun's jaw drops. The kid who was brawling on a basketball court 12 hours ago is now standing at a podium promising to uphold the academy's rules. The irony is so thick you could choke on it. Sung Hyun puts it together. If Subin is the representative, that means he had the highest entrance score of the entire freshman class. He remembers that fight on the ship and thinks about how Subin's water spirits gave him trouble even with the power restrictor. Without it, Sung Hyun admits he would have been destroyed, and then the weight of his father's condition hits him. Student council within a year, against people like that. But So Hyun doesn't care about any of the politics. She's bouncing with excitement about her first class, thinking it's going to be cooler than elementary school. Then Do Yoon walks up and tells her she needs to go back to the dorm. So Hyun is confused until the assistant asks if she's seen her schedule. Sun Hyun explains that since she was in a coma for 12 years, she never finished elementary school. So before she can take any hunter classes, she has to earn her basic diplomas, with Do Yoon one-on-one, literature, math, English, everything. The realization hits So Hyun like an asteroid. She screams that there's absolutely no way she's doing all that. Sung Hyun thanks Do Yoon for taking care of her as the car pulls away with his sister's face pressed against the window, screaming threats of revenge while he waves goodbye, thinking at least he graduated. The scene shifts to the classroom building. Sung Hyun is in his seat, waiting for his first class, Introduction to Hunter Ethics. Subin is complaining about the teacher being late, and Woo Jin says a teacher is never truly late. Then the clock hits the hour and the door slams open. Every student jumps and enrolls the most unhinged professor in anime history, riding an electric hoverboard into the lecture hall like he's making a DoorDash delivery to the gates of hell. The thing is humming and wobbling as he glides to the front of the room, stops, and stares the entire class down with the energy of a man who genuinely does not want to be here. He greets them in Japanese, then introduces himself as Professor Jin Hagiwara, and before anyone can even process the entrance, he announces that he hates this school, calls the entire education system inefficient, says it gets worse when students have special powers because they all have these rigid principles they'd rather die than compromise on. In his case, his principle is efficiency. Everything must be efficient, and so he asks the class a question. Why are hunters sent into dungeons instead of the military? Nobody knows. The students look at each other like they're on a game show and the host just asks something in Latin. Hagiwara answers his own question. It's money. The cost of deploying the military far exceeds the profit from dungeon loot. Awakened users are cheaper to maintain and generate better returns. Monster hunting isn't a calling, it's an industry, and money is the greatest superpower of all. He warns that for hunters, stamina and energy are currency. An avoidable death from exhaustion is the ultimate waste of resources. Then he starts targeting students. He calls on a kid in the front row and asks his ability type. The boy says he's a matter manipulator with about 100-meter range. Hagiwara asks about chemical compounds. The kid says he's never tried. Hagiwara asks about weight limits and speed. The kid has no idea. The professor's glare turns murderous. He warns that on the battlefield, hesitation means death. You have to know yourself inside and out before you can build any strategy. Then his finger swings to Sung Hyun. The boy flinches so hard he nearly falls out of his chair. Hagiwara asks his ability type. Sung Hyun stammers. The professor mocks him, asking if he's invoking his right to remain silent. Sung Hyun says that's not it. He then admits in front of the entire class that nobody has ever told him what his ability type is. The silence that follows could swallow the room. Hagiwara's face twists into an expression of pure disbelief, like someone just told him the earth is flat and meant it. Even Sabin, who has heard some stupid things in his life, is staring at Sung Hyun in shock. After class, Sabin catches him in the hallway and yells at him, demanding to know what that embarrassing display was about. Sung Hyun doesn't even understand why he's mad. Sabin calls him an idiot. Sung Hyun awkwardly agrees, then tries to explain that he genuinely never learned the technical terms. Nobody taught him. He doesn't know the jargon because he never had the proper training. The explanation makes Sabin even more annoyed. He stares at Sung-hyun like he just watched someone try to unlock a door by headbutting it. He tells him to hold on a second, then asks, dead serious, if Sung-hyun truly knows nothing about his own powers. Sung-hyun silences the answer. Subin calls him a loser, wishes him good luck in the most sarcastic voice humanly possible, and walks away. The other students in the hall are whispering about how brutal that was, and Sung-hyun is just standing there alone, finally realizing that his ignorance might actually get him killed at this school. So he does the only logical thing. He goes straight to Professor Chae Ji-hyun's office. Jaeyoung looks up from his desk, surprised to see the kid already, and asks what he wants because he's busy. Then he pauses and asks if Sung-hyun is already in trouble on day one. Sung-hyun admits, yeah, pretty much. He explains that every other student seemed to understand things he'd never even heard of. He tries to justify his cluelessness by saying he's chronically online, which makes Jaeyoung stare at him like a man watching his investment crash in real time. Then Jaeyoung asks one simple question. Does he have an awakened user license? The silence that follows is so loud it could fill a stadium. Jaeyoung grabs the boy, screaming, asking if he's serious about not having one. He says that's literally the first thing every awakened person is supposed to get. Sung-hyun says it's not his fault because minors need parental consent. Jaeyoung freezes, immediately understanding the problem. Shin Baek-ji deliberately never signed for his son's license. The man was so committed to keeping his kids out of the hunter life that he sabotaged them administratively. Jaeyoung grabs his phone and asks if So-hyun, the returnee, at least has a license. Cut to So-hyun, who has no idea why anyone would even need one. On the other end of the line, Do-yoon confirms that no, the situation is not looking good. Jaeyoung hangs up and looks like he wants to throw the phone through the wall. He yells that waiting until Sung-hyun is of age will be too late. The boy is screwed. He demands to know how Sung-hyun has been training all this time. The boy says he only did physical sparring because his master Ju-young said he wasn't ready for ability training. But Jaeyoung corrects him. It's not that Ju-young didn't want to teach him, he literally couldn't. And here's why. When an awakened person gets their license, they automatically enter a pact. Think of it like a supernatural Daya that chains every ability user in the world together. You cannot reveal how your powers work to anyone who isn't also licensed. The network is unbreakable. Everything on the internet about awakened abilities is either the tip of the iceberg or straight up fan fiction. Sung-hyun asks why all the secrecy, and Jaeyoung's answer is chilling. Because even the weakest awakened person can kill a regular civilian in the blink of an eye. These powers aren't toys. They're weapons of mass destruction wrapped in human skin. Sung-hyun finally understands why Ju-young put him through endless boring physical training and nothing else. He grumbles that he wants a refund for all those wasted years, but Jaeyoung just watches him with this quiet, knowing look, because internally, the professor is thinking about why he really recommended this kid. It wasn't just the rare chain ability. It was the fact that Sung-hyun managed to do what he did at the hospital with zero formal training and a power he didn't even understand. With a smile, Jaeyoung says his real talent is finding diamonds in the rough, and Sung-hyun is lucky to have him as a mentor. He hands the boy a small glowing blue cube. Explains it's called a blue cube, and it's basically the skeleton key to the awakened world's secret network. All the real information, the classified stuff, the things you never find on Google, it's all in there. He tells Sung-hyun to study everything he sends and gives him one last piece of advice that sounds like it came from a Wall Street trading floor. Fake it till you make it, don't look lost. In an elite school like this, it's every man for himself. Then he asks if Sung-hyun still wants to join the student council, and the boy breaks into a cold sweat so intense you could irrigate a farm with it. He agrees to keep up the act. Meanwhile, at the Poppy Hall mansion, So-hyun receives her own cube, except hers is reddish. Her first question is whether it has games. Do-yoon tells her to just press it. She does, and the thing lights up like a Christmas tree, projecting holographic screens and symbols everywhere, confirming her identity as a student of Cyanhan Academy. The girl is losing her mind. She's squealing, pointing at floating text, and then discovers the cube can actually talk back to her. She's treating this thing like it's Siri Cross with a genie. Do-yoon watches with a smile as So-hyun prepares to ask her first question, and she goes straight for the throat. She asks what happened in the Mapo district 7 years ago. Do-yoon's face goes white. The system says the query is too vague, which is apparently the I equivalent of, "Are you sure you want to open this door?" She tries again, mentioning her father and someone who might have died. Do-yoon damn near leaps across the room to change the subject, nervously suggesting they check the school forum instead because that'll be so much fun. So Hyun is confused but goes along with it. The forum loads up, and it's exactly what you'd expect from a school full of teenagers with superpowers. One post is inviting people to dinner, another is just a picture of a white cat. So Hyun is bored out of her mind until a post pops up absolutely roasting a student who didn't know his own ability type in Hunter Ethics class. Her eyes lock on the name. It's her brother. The thread is clowning Sung-hyun, asking how he passed the exams without a license, calling him clueless, questioning if he bribed someone. So Hyun's worry is immediate and visible. Speaking of Sung Hyun, the boy is outside walking around with his nose buried in the blue cube, reading about the 5 types of awakened beings like he's cramming for a final he should have taken years ago. The cube asks if he wants to investigate something, and he asks how. The cube tells him to sit back and watch a professional work. And right on cue, 2 students come running up to him with the energy of paparazzi who just spotted a Kardashian at Walmart. The guy ceremoniously asks if he's the famous Ji Sung Hyun from the Hunter class and then screams at his partner to get the camera ready. Before Sung Hyun can process what's happening, a camera is shoved in his face, and the kid announces a live broadcast from the school's journalism club. He slaps some kind of ring on Sung Hyun's finger, and Sung Hyun, bless his heart, asks if it's a mood ring. The reporter laughs and says he's as clueless as the rumors promised. It's actually a rank detector, and with dramatic flair, he announces the result, F rank. The reporter is ecstatic. This is his Pulitzer moment. He starts screaming that this headline is going to sell papers for weeks. Sung Hyun tries to say he didn't agree to any interview, but the guy ignores him completely and gets right in his face with the microphone, demanding to know who he bribed to get into the academy. He yells about forum conspiracies, saying Sung Hyun either bought his way in or is just the disappointing son of a billionaire. Then he makes the fatal mistake. He laughs and asks what an F rank is going to do about it. Maybe play the daddy card? That laughter ends real fast. Sung Hyun pins the guy to the ground while the camera girl snaps photos of the carnage. The reporter is screaming that the interview is cancelled while Sung Hyun stands there wondering if this is what his entire school career is going to look like. In the background, the reporter is still shouting about war crimes as Sung Hyun walks away, exhausted before the semester has even properly started. Things don't get better in the classroom. Professor Hagiwara announces they're forming teams of 3 for a simulated monster hunt. Sung Hyun looks around, and what follows is the most painful rejection montage since middle school. One student says his team is unfortunately full. Another says maybe next time. A girl flat out tells him her team only accepts C rank or higher. He's standing there alone like the last kid picked in gym class, except nobody is picking him at all. He goes to Hagiwara and explains nobody wants him. The professor thinks for a moment and decides that if nobody wants him on their team, he'll just be a solo team. One person versus a simulated monster. Sung Hyun nearly faints. A giant stone golem spawns in front of him, roaring like something out of Dark Souls. He dodges one attack, thinks about how this feels like a budget version of solo leveling, and then gets absolutely flattened. Final score, 0. In another class, a different professor calls him up to answer a question about dungeon strategy. Sung Hyun admits he doesn't know. The professor tries multiple choice. Sung Hyun starts quoting a movie as his answer. The professor explodes, asking if he thinks this is a joke. Sung Hyun apologizes with the most painfully awkward smile. Lunchtime. Sung Hyun is eating alone in the cafeteria, muttering about how every teacher seems to enjoy targeting him specifically. Then he spots So Hyun in the food line. She sees him too and waves excitedly, thrilled to find her brother in the same building. But before she can come over, Dan-mo grabs her and pulls her away. So Hyun protests, pointing out that her brother is eating alone over there, but Dan-mo redirects her. Sung Hyun watches from a distance and feels a small wave of relief knowing at least his sister isn't being bothered. He goes back to eating alone and tells himself it's fine. This isn't new. In middle school, he was never popular either. Always ate by himself. But his real problem isn't loneliness, it's the student council. Nobody at this school will support an F rank, and without changing their minds, he has no shot. Then a tray hits the table across from him. Sabin Seol sits down and casually asks if he's eating alone again. He provokes him immediately, saying nobody wants a cage fighter around. Sung Hyun stands up heated, but then forces Subin to sit back down because they need to talk. Subin drops a bomb. He says it's about So Hyun. Sung Hyun's expression shifts to pure concern. He leans in and tells Subin to tell him everything from the beginning. Flashback to the day before in monster hunting class. So Hyun is partnered with a blonde student who gets furious and screams at her, demanding to know if she's joking. So Hyun apologizes, lost and helpless. The girl yells that she didn't use her power or her weapon, making So Hyun feel even worse about herself. Dan-mo steps in and asks the girl to go easy on the newbie, but the blonde just storms off muttering whatever. So Hyun apologizes to Dan-mo, who assures her it's okay. Subin watched the whole thing. Dan-mo explains that So Hyun could only manage the basics because he protects her in the classes they share. But the truth is, So Hyun hasn't been able to use magic since that night. Every time she thinks about it, the professor's warning echoes and the memory of blood on her hands paralyzes her. She shrinks in her chair, wishing she could erase it all. She can't stop thinking about the Mappo incident from 7 years ago either. The blue cube won't tell her anything, and Do-yoon changes the subject every time she asks. She's exhausted, mentally drained, and in the middle of class, surrounded by noise and chaos, she falls asleep at her desk. She wakes up with a start, realizing class already ended. She scolds herself for dozing off. She needs notes. She looks around and sees Subin surrounded by students at the front, practically holding court. He's popular, competent, everything she's not. She remembers how he helped her before and works up the nerve to approach him, but the second he turns and makes eye contact, she panics and bolts out of the classroom like the fire alarm went off. Subin stands there completely baffled. She starts on a staircase, panting, calling herself a dork for running away from someone who was nice to her. Then a voice calls out to her using that same nickname. She turns around and it's Junel, the muscle-bound upperclassman from the cafeteria incident. He's smiling wide, acting friendly, asking if she's down about the class. He offers to lend her his notes, and so Hyun lights up because she actually needs them. He tells her to follow him, and she does, not thinking twice. He leads her to another classroom and starts yelling at a girl named Yoon B, asking to borrow her notes. So Hyun's face drops when she realizes he never had his own. The girl looks uncomfortable and reminds him he said last time would be the last time. Junel doesn't care. He says the new girl fell asleep and he's doing her a favor and maybe he'll sneak a peek himself. The girl looks like she's about to cry from the pressure. He gets aggressive, asking if she wants him to fail and drop out. That's when So Hyun steps in. She tells Yoon Bai she doesn't have to show them anything if she doesn't want to, and that nobody should feel forced. Junel is stunned. This tiny freshman just called him out. She says forcing people to do things is what bullies do. His face goes red. He asks if a newbie just called him a bully. Another student from across the room twists the knife, asking if he's ever tried not being a muscle-bound bully for once. The whole class bursts into laughter. Junel is mortified. He drops the notes request and starts to leave, but on the way out, he grabs So Hyun's wrist hard. He demands a thank you, saying that because of her, everyone thinks he's the villain. He squeezes tighter, saying she's not leaving until she clears his name. She's terrified, begging him to let go because it hurts, and then something snaps. She slaps him across the face, full contact. The crack echoes through the room. Even So Hyun is shocked at herself. Junel touches his face. His nose is bleeding from a slap. This man whose power is literally to be as hard as rock just got his nose broken by a girl he could bench press with one arm. He goes from confused to furious in half a second. He accuses her of using her awakened power. He screams that a regular slap shouldn't even tickle him with his ability. Then it clicks. He wipes the blood and shouts that he finally understands. He accuses her of being a returnee. The classroom goes dead silent. Students start whispering, remembering a returnee who caused trouble last year. Junel loses it, screaming that all returnees are the same, just using their power on regular people without a care in the world. He rages about the fairy incident and lunges at her with a fist, but the punch never lands. A blue barrier materializes out of thin air and blocks the attack completely, so Hyun doesn't even know where it came from. Then a voice cuts through the chaos from the staircase. It asks if this is really what bullies do around here. It's Subin, standing there with a blue aura rolling off him, looking like he just walked out of an anime opening. He tells So Hyun he liked her attitude for standing up to the guy. He walks toward Junel and explains that where he comes from, when someone stands up to an oppressor, that's called telling the truth. Junel asks what he wants. Subin introduces himself as a freshman too. He says he saw the whole fight but doesn't understand the accusation about her power. Junel yells that it's obvious she used it. But Subin calmly explains that returnees have naturally enhanced physical strength, no ability activation required. He tells the guy to crack open a textbook sometime. Then he asks the entire class if anyone saw So Hyun use her power. Nobody speaks. He continues, pointing out that Junel was the one who grabbed her, exposed her secret in front of everyone, and then tried to attack her. By any definition, she was acting in self-defense, and honestly, he deserved worse. Junel charges at Subin, screaming that he's going to destroy him, but he freezes mid-step. Because Subin is radiating an aura so intense and so cold that the air itself feels heavier. Subin smiles and says he never turns down a fight. The girls in the class start cheering. Junel grinds his teeth, realizes he's completely outmatched, and storms out, slamming the door so hard it probably needed structural repairs. Subin finishes telling the story and asks Sung Hyun if he understands the situation now. He says he gets why Sung Hyun is keeping his distance from his sister, but warns him that now that everyone knows she's a returnee, people are going to target her. Sung Hyun knows it's not that he doesn't care, it's that he's drowning in his own problems. He's about to mentally check out when Woo Jin appears out of absolutely nowhere and announces he has a solution. He sits down at the table and immediately starts stealing food off Subin's tray. Subin glares at him with murder in his eyes. Then Woo Jin launches into the most unhinged tangent of all time. He starts monologuing about how perfect the cafeteria food was last year. The texture, the broth, the lunch lady's beautiful smile. This man is giving a eulogy for cafeteria noodles. Sung Hyun and Subin exchange the most confused look in the history of confused looks. Woo Jin slams the table, mourning the lunch lady's retirement, and Subin screams, asking what any of this has to do with anything. Woo Jin finally gets to the point. He says he can fix Sung Hyun's reputation. There's an event coming up in a few weeks called the Open Class. Sung Hyun asks if it's like Parents' Day. Woo Jin says it's similar, but Subin corrects him. It's a fighting event. Freshmen versus upperclassmen, and the audience won't be parents. It'll be professional hunters, guild representatives, industry scouts, corporate headhunters. The whole establishment of the hunter world is going to be sitting in the stands watching students fight. It's basically a combat career fair with blood. Sung Hyun's brain immediately goes into overdrive. If he can stand out at this event, he can flip his entire reputation in one day. He asks how the matchups work, and Subin explains they were divided by student number last year. Woo Jin suggests picking a D rank to beat up for an easy win. Sung-hyun turns it down flat. He says he's not here to dunk on someone weaker. His plan is much bigger than that. Cut to the school library. Sung-hyun walks through the archive room after Ji-young casually swiped him in, ignoring whatever access rules probably existed. He pulls up the records from last year's open class and starts analyzing the student groupings. His number is 25, and there are 2 returnees nearby in the list. With 30 students per group, the odds of one of them landing in his bracket are high. His plan is to study their fighting styles and challenge a returnee during the observation class. He imagines the scene. The entire hunter industry watching as an F rank with chains takes down a returnee in front of everyone. His eyes light up. This is it. This is the move. Elsewhere, Junil is ranting to Maju about how So Ha-yoon humiliated him and how he's going to get his revenge at the open class. Maju looks at him with the condescending energy of someone watching a toddler threaten to fight an adult. She reminds him that So Ha-yoon was the one who broke his nose, so maybe he should sit this one out. Then she admits she's not exactly a fan of the girl either. Junil instantly agrees because when the mean girl says she has a plan, you nod and fall in line. Miyu offers to handle So-hyun herself, but she'll want a favor in return. Just a small one, sometime in the future. Junil reminds her that So-hyun is a returnee and won't go down easy. Miyu's expression doesn't change. She says she has her own methods. And honestly, the returnee status just makes things easier. The way she says it sends a chill through the scene. 2 weeks pass, training montages, studying, preparation. Then the day arrives. Sung-hyun stands in front of a massive door, takes a breath, and walks into an arena packed with students. The moment of truth. Meanwhile, So-hyun's class just ended and she's frustrated about being useless again. But Ji-young catches her before she leaves and says he's personally escorting her to the open class. He leads her through a nature trail to what looks like the middle of nowhere, where a single elevator stands alone in a clearing like something out of a horror movie. He invites her in. The doors close with a metallic clang and the thing plummets underground. He asks if she's ever been to the underground campus. She didn't even know it existed. He explains that the school was originally built in secret, and the best way to hide a secret school is to put it underground. The doors open and So-hyun's jaw almost detaches from her face. There's an entire futuristic city down here. Massive, glowing, like something out of a sci-fi movie. She compares it to a cartoon, and Ji-young explains they keep everything too dangerous for the surface down here. Magical devices, distorted dimensional zones, captured monsters used for research. A deep growl echoes from something in a pit, and even Ji-young admits he doesn't know what's in every restricted section. So Ha-yoon is equal parts amazed and terrified. On the ride down, Ji-young asks how she's adjusting. She says she can't seem to make many friends. She has Danmo and Purium and Woo-jin have been kind. She thinks Subin is nice, but everyone else seems afraid to get close, probably because of the cafeteria incident where she accidentally hurt Junil. Her biggest fear is losing control again and hurting someone, or worse, repeating what happened at the playground. Ji-young reassures her. He says not to worry, that he'll personally step in if anything goes wrong, and that her brother is right there too. She nods, feeling a little lighter. He opens the arena doors and she walks into a stadium absolutely packed with people. Down on the floor, Hagiwara is grumbling in Japanese about Ji-young being late. Ji-young grabs the mic and announces the briefing. He explains the arena is sponsored by UJ Magicore Industries and activates an energy barrier around the entire battlefield. The fighting suits connect directly to the barrier. To demonstrate how it works, he walks over to Hagiwara and smacks him on the head with the microphone at full force. A miniature statue of Hagiwara on the barrier immediately cracks, but the actual professor felt nothing. The barrier absorbs all damage. Nobody gets hurt for real. So Hyeon realizes this means she can actually use her powers without worrying about hurting anyone. Ji-young tells the students to treat this as a friendly learning session where the seniors teach the freshmen. Subin and Sung-hyun exchange glances, both knowing that's complete garbage. With this many industry scouts in the stands, Friendly left the building hours ago, the stands are loaded. The Shinsun Guild sent Oh Gangho and Hunter Mado. The rival UJ Guild has Juwon and Do Jiwook. Madio complains about being paid to watch teenagers fight, but Gangho shuts him down immediately. He explains that the smart students already know this isn't just practice. This is a talent showcase. A victory here can change your entire career trajectory. They're not here for entertainment. They're talent scouts. And he warns Madio to keep his eyes sharp because he will not let the UJ Gen Guild poach all the promising recruits from under their noses. Down in the arena, Woo-jin is scanning for an opponent when he notices someone approaching Sung-hyun. A blonde girl carrying a massive weapon case on her back walks up and politely asks if he needs a training partner. The surrounding students go silent. Whispers start spreading. They recognize Sung-hyun as the infamous F-rank rookie. The girl hears the rumors, studies him for a moment, then nods and accepts the challenge without a word. After she walks away, Woo-jin grabs Sung-hyun and screams, asking if he's lost his mind. He just challenged a returnee. Subin is watching with quiet surprise. Sung Ha-yoon says he doesn't care how strong she is because his chains can neutralize anyone, just like he did to Subin on the ship. Woo Jin reluctantly admits it was a bold move, then says Sung Ha-yoon actually picked well, because despite appearances, this girl is technically one of the weakest returnees. She flat out refuses to use her returnee abilities. Sung-hyun gives him a side-eye. Clearly hearing this for the first time, Woo Jin realizes Sung-hyun picked her on pure gut instinct without knowing any of this. She fights exclusively with magical devices. Her weapon is a sword called Hong Yan, or Red Mist, which can fire arcs of cutting energy in any direction, not just where the blade swings. That's how she compensates for not using her powers. She sealed her abilities at the end of last year, and the school gave her the sword to make up for it. Sung-hyun is annoyed that the school hooked her up with gear while he got nothing. His classmate tells him to check the school's lost and found if he wants a weapon, which is about as helpful as a screen door on a submarine. Woo Jin gets interrupted when So-hyun shows up asking if her friend already has an opponent for the duels. Dan-mo confirms she does. When So-hyun asks who, Dan-mo says it's Maju. So-hyun's blood runs cold. She knows the real Maju would never be friendly without an ulterior motive. She says that girl would need to be possessed to act nice. Woo Jin starts shaking Sung-hyun, yelling that his sister is going to need an exorcist. Then the announcer calls the second match, Dan-mo versus Go Junul. In the stands, So-hyun and her friends react with shock. Dan-mo jumps up cheering that it's her turn. So-hyun nervously reminds her that Junul is a dangerous guy. But Dan-mo turns to her with this calm, almost scary expression and says she'll never let a bully beat her again. In the arena, Junul struts in looking like he thinks he's the main character. Competitors place their weapons on a registration conveyor belt for the safety scan. Junul pulls out a massive sword and starts bragging about it. He announces it's called the Echo Slicer, a rare weapon given to him by sponsors at the Shinsun Group. He says it's heading to an exclusive auction soon. Up in the stands, Gangho and Matteo from the actual Shinsun Guild are staring in complete disbelief because they never authorized any sponsorship. Gangho confirms they didn't provide that weapon. Matteo starts to understand. Someone is using this kid as a walking advertisement. In the arena, Dan-mo doesn't care about his sword commercial. She notices he's using a blade, which means one thing. So Hyun's friend realizes it too and says it out loud. He's a Sentinel, the melee combat class. Users who enhance their physical abilities to superhuman levels. The golden rule when fighting a Sentinel is simple. Do not engage in close quarters combat, you will lose. The countdown hits 0 and Junul charges with everything he's got. His sword comes crashing down and Dan-mo blocks it, but the force is staggering. Her weapon starts cracking under the pressure. He smashes the ground and she dodges, but debris clips her, damaging her statue in the stands. Her friend is panicking. Then Dan-mo's weapon starts glowing. She spins it through the air as it transforms, gaining energy and shifting shape. She swings at Junul blocks, confused by the angle. A red glow appears on his equipment. Some invisible force launches Dan-mo across the arena. Nobody understands what just happened. So Ha-yoon analyzes the situation and realizes the Echo Slicer didn't just block. It reflected the damage back at Dan-mo. Sung-hyun grabs his head, starting to understand the weapon's mechanic. The sword reflects any impact back at the attacker. Junul didn't even have to do anything. Dan-mo picks herself up and smiles. She says he hasn't seen anything yet. This is where we learn what Dan-mo really is. She's a summoner, the second class of Awakened. Summoners conjure unique weapons, just like Sung-hyun's chains, and depending on the weapon's ability, a summoner can completely nullify a Sentinel's physical advantage. Back in the fight, Junul boasts about being faster and stronger, but his own sword starts acting weird. The blade bends and warps, turning into a limp whip. Something is wrong with his weapon, and he doesn't know what. Up in the stands, Miyu's eyes are glowing with a sinister pink light, which cannot be a good sign. Junul fires a beam of red energy that cracks Dan-mo's weapon under the pressure. She pushes forward anyway, launching a flurry of rapid attacks that force him backward. She finds an opening and smashes the side of her weapon into his face so hard he goes flying, but when she checks, the hit did 0 damage. He touches his own face, and the skin sinks in, like rubber, like putting. He freaks out. Here's Dan-mo's ability. Anything her weapon touches turns soft. Instant structural compromise. It doesn't matter how much a Sentinel busts their body. One touch from her silverware, and that area becomes paste. Any follow-up blow to a softened zone would be devastating. The catch? She has 2 major weaknesses. First, she can only summon 1 piece of silverware at a time, so she's limited to 1 weapon. Second, she has no control over which piece appears next. She could swap a spoon for a knife, or she might get another spoon. It's completely random. And the switch leaves her defenseless for a split second. In a flashback, we see a younger Dan-mo being bullied at school. Classmates laughed at her power and threw trash on her in the locker room. She was lying on the floor covered in garbage, sad and furious, when she managed to summon a knife with a green glow. She confronted the bullies in the hallway, and when they charged at her, something shifted inside. Instead of fear, she felt her heart race with excitement. She smiled. For the first time, she understood what a real fight felt like. She was born for this. Back in the arena, Junul ditches his busted sword completely. Miju in the stands is shocked. He'd throw away a sponsored weapon mid-fight. He powers up with a blue aura and says if she's going all out, then so is he. He'll break every weapon she summons. Danmo smiles and says try it. She hurls a giant fork at him. He blocks on instinct and wonders when she switched weapons. A red portal appears above him, the fork floats, and suddenly he feels a presence behind him. It's Danmo with a knife. She lands a devastating strike to his back. He grins through the pain and asks if she wants to know what his knife does. Turns out wherever his blade cuts, dozens of additional cuts appear all over the target's body simultaneously. Death by 1,000 cuts. He grabs her and they both get hit, crashing to the ground in a cloud of dust. The audience is speechless. Junel stands up and calls her a rat. Danmo is recovering on the ground. And then the announcer declares a winner. It's Junel. Danmo is stunned. Junel himself doesn't even understand how he won. He's standing there asking if it was really him. Gangho in the stands comments that the girl fought beautifully, but the raw power difference was simply too much. Junel celebrates while Danmo sighs in defeat. Her friends rush over to apologize, but Danmo comforts them, saying she did great. As she walks past the group, Woo Jin teases Sung-hyun, saying it must suck seeing his sister's bully win. But Sung-hyun's answer surprises everyone. He says no. In his eyes, Danmo was the real winner. He explains that the point of the open class isn't just winning. It's making an impression on the industry scouts. Danmo went head-to-head with a much stronger opponent and held her own. She read his loss of focus, switched weapons without him noticing, and gave a masterclass in adaptability and strategy. Meanwhile, Junel had every advantage, a sponsored weapon, higher rank, raw power, and still looked like he was struggling against a freshman. No serious guild wants a hunter who can't maintain focus in a dungeon. Dungeons are death traps where losing concentration for 1 second means death. What matters isn't who wins the match. It's who shows they can think under pressure. Woo Jin agrees, saying Junel wasn't impressing anyone with that performance. Then Sung-hyun starts connecting dots. He remembers Junel bragging about the sponsored weapon and realizes the Shinsun group probably set the whole thing up. The open class isn't just for students, it's a marketplace. Students show off their skills. Companies show off their products. He theorizes that Miyu brokered a deal. Shinsun gives Junel the Echo Slicer, he promotes it during the fight, and in return he gets a future opportunity with the guild. Woojin confirms that this is exactly how the arena works, and he's stunned that Sung-hyun figured it out on his own without any insider knowledge. He stares at the kid in a completely new way, realizing this F-rank nobody just reverse-engineered the corporate politics of the entire hunter industry from one fight. Woojin tells Sung-hyun it's time to go. He says thanks, and that they're now closer to solving the mystery. Cut to a hallway near the restrooms. Muju is confronting Junel, demanding he hand over what they agreed on. She reminds him the deal was to only use the Echo Slicer during the fight, nothing else. Junel protests that the sword went limp in his hand and he had no choice. Maju glares and tells him he still thinks winning matters at the open class. She screams that winning or losing is irrelevant, it's about the performance. Then Woo Jin appears and says this is the one time it's about competing, not winning. He asks what Miju and the Shinsun group are scheming behind the scenes. Miju puffs her cheeks and tells him it's a private conversation. He fires back with pure mockery. He lays out the deal, trading favors for a guild recommendation. Junel flips out, yelling he doesn't need to cheat to get in, and then accidentally confirms details Miju never mentioned. She tells him to shut his mouth so hard you can practically hear her soul leaving her body. Woo Jin celebrates being right and apologizes for initially thinking the trade was about a guild spot. Then his brain kicks into gear and he asks who Maju's next opponent is. He guesses it's So-Hyun. Maju's entire body goes rigid. He connects it to the cafeteria incident where So-Hyun broke Junel's nose. It all lines up. Junel stammers with nothing to say. Maju screams at him to keep quiet. Woo Jin points to their friends watching from the stands with innocent smiles and asks, dead serious, if So-Hyun is the next target of their little scheme. Both of them freeze with guilty expressions, breaking into a cold sweat. From a distance, Sun-Hyun is watching the whole confrontation with a grim, worried stare. Miju recovers and says she's sorry to disappoint, but the accusations are baseless and all he's doing is hurting her precious feelings. Woo Jin takes the opening and asks directly what she has against So-Hyun. She denies having a grudge, says it's not personal, she just picked the easiest opponent she could find for a guaranteed win. And unfortunately for So-Hyun, that easy target is her. Then Meju flips it back on Woo Jin, demanding to know why he cares so much about So-Hyun. She says she saw him sitting next to her, and Woo Jin fires back that So-Hyun is basically a big baby. Then he catches himself, realizing he almost revealed her biggest weakness to the one person who would absolutely weaponize it. He's done arguing. He turns to leave but tosses one final grenade over his shoulder, asking Meju not to go too hard on the poor thing. That last comment makes Miju's face go so red she looks like a thermometer about to pop. Watching the entire exchange from a distance, Sung-Hyun keeps his mouth shut and his worry visible. He'd be lying if he said he didn't see this coming. The second everyone found out his sister was a returnee, a confrontation became inevitable. He just didn't expect it to happen this fast, and against Miju of all people, the daughter of the Shinsun Group president. the girl with corporate backing, a mean streak, and zero chill. His plate is already overflowing, and now he's watching his opponent across the arena peacefully napping like the world isn't on fire. Woojin walks up and says he thought So Hyun didn't even care about being a hunter. He suggests she just forfeit to avoid the drama entirely. But Woojin explains that Miju doesn't let people walk away. When she picks a victim, she turns everyone around them into chess pieces. He remembers the student she's broken before and says he'll never forget what she's done to people. Then a man approaches and calls Sung Hyun over for a private word in the bleachers. He tells the boy he needs to join his sister in the arena. Sung Hyun is confused until the man explains that the rules require a supervisor present during returnee fights, someone who can intervene if things go sideways. Sung Hyun immediately flashes back to the hospital, to So Hyun losing control, to pink energy ripping through the sky. The instructor adds that having her brother nearby will actually be good for her. Near the arena entrance, So Hyun is wringing her hands so hard she might twist them off. Sung Hyun sits on the floor next to her and asks if she's really sure about this. She stammers that she can handle it. It's nothing, totally fine, absolutely no problem. She's the worst liar in the entire academy. He tries to find the words to calm her down, but she beats him to it. She shouts that she's going to give it everything she has and that she won't forget what Subin told her. Sung Hyun has no idea what she's talking about. Flashback. So Hyun is thanking Subin for lending her his notes. She's happy, a little flustered, and he compliments her handwriting, saying the kindest people always write like that. But then his tone shifts. He warns her that being kind isn't enough. She also needs to be strong, because if people see her as weak, the bullying will never stop, and it won't just hurt her, it'll drag down everyone around her. So Hyun thinks of her friends, her brother. The truth hits like a brick. Subin finishes by saying that if she can't stand up for herself, she can't protect anyone else either. Back in the present, So Hyun says she wishes she could tell him he was wrong, but she can't. She tells her brother she would die if she saw him or her friends get hurt because of her. She shouts that she needs to do this for herself because that's what big sisters do. Sung Hyun's heart cracks a little. He says he's not telling her not to try, he's just worried. He asked her to throw in the towel if things get bad. Says this fight isn't worth getting hurt over. She smiles and thanks him for caring, genuinely happy he's there. The announcer calls match 8, Ji So Hyun versus Shin Miyu. The two walk to the center of the arena and the tension is so thick you could cut it with one of Dan Mo's magic forks. The countdown starts and So Hyun, sweet innocent So Hyun, actually thanks Miju for choosing her as an opponent. Miju stares at the ground and scoffs. When the fight begins, Miju doesn't even look at her. She just says it's a joke that So Hyun thinks she belongs in the same space as her. So Hyun is confused and apologizes, which only makes Miyu angrier. She snaps that she's sick of the innocent girl act and that So Hyun is a real piece of work for pretending nobody notices what she's doing. The crowd starts whispering. Dan Mo has no idea what's happening. Purple energy starts flowing around Miyu as she talks about threads of fate. She pulls keychains toward her hand with her power, crushes them in her grip, and the dark energy explodes outward. A massive creature materializes beside her. Miju stands next to her summoned monster and announces it's time to end this. Up in the stands, Gangho from Shinsung says it's finally Miju's turn. Medio warns that her opponent is a returnee. Gango starts to reply but suddenly stops. His eyes glow red. He senses a powerful foreign energy somewhere in the crowd. A mysterious figure in a hat is watching from the stands, radiating a dark aura. Gango wonders who the hell that is, but shakes it off when Medio asks if he's okay. He says Miju definitely has a shot, because despite being a returnee, So Hyun is still just a scared teenager on the inside. Miju is revealed to be a sorceress class, and she appears holding a wand with absolute confidence. She runs it across her lips and says she's going to take a closer look first. Then, without warning, she blitzes forward and sends So Hyun flying across the arena. The girl hits the ground hard. Sung Hyun can't believe what he just saw, and the monster isn't done. It slams down at So Hyun, who barely dodges but starts eating shrapnel to the face. Sung Hyun is baffled because she should be fast enough to avoid everything, but she keeps taking hits without fighting back. So Hyun is spiraling internally, wondering why Miju hates her so much. She flips through every memory trying to figure out what she did wrong, and then it clicks. The creature freezes mid-attack and everyone is confused. So Hyun screams that she's finally figured it out. She accuses Miju of being jealous of Woojin, as in jealous that Woojin has been spending time with her. Miju's face goes through every stage of grief simultaneously. Her eyes are the size of dinner plates. So Hyun says that's why she's been acting so petty, and Mei-yu screams that it's ridiculous, but So Hyun points at her tomato red face and the evidence speaks for itself. In the stands, Subin and his friends are watching this soap opera unfold but can't hear a word. Subin literally says he wishes they had microphones. So Hyun promises to keep the secret, swearing nobody will find out. The instructor standing right there declares that what happens in the arena stays in the arena on his honor as a teacher. Sung Hyun swears too, barely paying attention. Miyu looks like she's about to achieve nuclear fusion from pure rage. She screams, "You're dead," and charges. The monster lunges, but So Hyun dodges. Sung Hyun notices the creature has slowed down. The instructor explains that a sorceress's power weakens when their mental focus breaks. And thanks to that little relationship counseling session, Miju's concentration is absolutely demolished. Meanwhile, So Hyun hasn't even begun to show what she can really do. Her eyes glow with new intensity. Flashback to Jeong's power assessment. He congratulated her on the results and explained she has 4 abilities available. Pisces Ascension for free flight, Aquarius Explosion for energy blasts, Leo Shield for physical enhancement, and Sagittarius Arrow for devastating piercing attacks. She couldn't remember anything else, saying her memories of the fairy world were still hazy. Jeong told her that was normal and that the memories would return, but the most useful ability right now was obvious. So Hyun's feet leave the ground, surrounded by a star-filled aura, and she takes flight. Miju is shook, demanding to know how this girl is flying. So Hyun charges Aquarius Explosion and fires an energy blast that nails Miju's creature dead center, dealing catastrophic damage. The crowd loses their minds. Miju summons a giant robot from a keychain, which transforms into a metal wall to shield her. The energy blast hits the shield and starts cracking it apart. The robot crumbles under the pressure. Sung Hyun watches and wonders why he was ever worried. With power like that, nobody should be able to touch his sister. But then So Hyun's energy vanishes. Her hand drops. She just stops in the middle of the arena, staring into nothing. Sung Hyun's relief evaporates instantly. The blue energy around her is completely gone. Miju grins, realizing her real play just landed. So Hyun isn't out of power. She's paralyzed with fear. Miju didn't just cast illusions on her puppets. She cast them directly into So Hyun's mind. Scene shifts, and So Hyun sees Jeong Chai on the ground, covered in blood, barely breathing. She sees fallen bodies. Her heart is pounding. She thinks she did this. The nightmare is eating her alive. Then she takes a brutal hit out of nowhere, the invisible attack sensor spinning through the air and crashing to the ground. Miyu appears with that twisted smile, telling her to keep up with the pace. So Hyun looks around and sees everyone is fine. The carnage wasn't real. Jeong explains from the sideline that this is what an illusion mage does. So Hyun is trapped inside Miyu's mental prison. Invisible weapons, fake nightmares, psychological warfare. Every hit she takes is real, but she can't see them coming. She gets hit again and again. Miyu says you can't fight what you can't see. So Hyun finally understands what's happening and tries to dodge. She remembers Jeong's advice to attack the caster directly and puts up a Leo shield, but Jeong's expression darkens. He explains that Miju's magic isn't ordinary illusion work. Miju knows something critical about returnees. They all come back with trauma, every single one, and trauma is an illusion mage's buffet. Miju starts pushing So Hyun's worst memories to the surface. The playground, the blood, the body, the fear of losing control. She's weaponizing her opponent's PTSD as a combat strategy, so Hyun fires back with a blast, but Miju just smiles, saying she only needs to push the right buttons. She plans to trap So Hyun in an infinite loop of her worst nightmares. Suddenly it looks like Miju herself is getting attacked. So Hyun screams Miju's name in horror, not understanding what's happening. Danmo is stunned. Sun Hyun is tense. A student begs Jeong to stop the fight because the winner is obvious, but Jeong refuses. He points at the arena and tells Sung Hyun to look. His sister has taken a beating, yes, but she hasn't deactivated her powers once. She hasn't given up. He says So Hyun isn't the only one with something to prove at this event. For her, this fight is everything. She's fighting to stop being a burden, that's why she's still standing. Sung Hyun thinks about telling Jeong to pull her out, but then the memories hit. So Hyun saying she woke up alone in the world. So Hyun saying she'd die if her friends got hurt because of her. So Hyun screaming that she needs to do this alone. He remembers his own words that nobody can judge someone else's goal. He told her the fight wasn't serious, but who was he to decide that? His father's condition echoes, protect your sister, and Sung Hyun finally understands. Protecting her doesn't mean pulling her out. It means trusting her to fight. He turns away and lets his sister handle it. In the arena, So Hyun can barely think. The illusions are relentless. She wonders what she can even do to escape. Miju taunts her, asking why she keeps hurting people. So Hyun thinks all she ever wanted was to make friends. She screams, trying to pull herself together. Then from the sideline, Sung Hyun yells at her, asking if the story about saving a world was a lie. He asks if she really defeated the fairy queen. So Hyun is confused, wondering what any of this has to do with leprechauns. But the word queen triggers something deep in her memory. A vision unfolds. She remembers standing before the fairy queen's throne after a long and brutal journey. The queen is regal and overwhelming, calling So Hyun a small child and praising her courage for making it this far. But then the queen's tone shifts. She says So Hyun is in no condition to fight and that defeating her now would only give false hope. Instead of a battle, the queen waves her hand and conjures an enormous banquet. She invites the girl to sit and eat. So Hyun sits at one end of an impossibly long table, the queen at the other. They eat in silence. So Hyun can't tell if this is real, an illusion, or a buried memory breaking through. The queen speaks. She says So Hyun's accomplishment was remarkable. Nobody had ever reached the throne before, but she couldn't have done it alone. She asks how So Hyun expected to win without help. The girl starts crying. She admits she doesn't know. She tries to remember her companions from the fairy realm, but their faces and names have been erased from her mind. The queen asks if she's lost her memories. So Hyun nods, devastated. She says she's lost everything. She questions the point of magic or strength when fear controls everything. She cries that she's just a child who doesn't understand how she ever saved anyone. The queen tells her that no one saves a world alone. The fairies helped. Rocks helped. The trees helped. Her friends helped. Without them, her power was meaningless. The queen declares herself clearly superior in every way, but then she says something that changes everything. She says what she witnessed wasn't fairy magic. It was a human power, something unknown in the fairy realm, a force that changed their world. A power called charm. The ability to connect with others, to inspire courage, to make allies out of strangers. That was So Hyun's real magic. The queen tells her she's already given her the answer she's been searching for. Then she rises and gives one final command. Show me your magic. Back in the present, So Hyun knows the vision might be fake. But the message isn't. She remembers the queen's lesson about never being alone. She looks at the arena and sees her brother standing there, watches Jeong nearby and realizes they're her safety net. If she loses control, they'll stop her. She doesn't have to be afraid anymore. A smile finally breaks through the fear. She thinks about how grateful she is to be Sung Hyun's big sister. She thanks him silently because it was all thanks to him. She dodges the next invisible attack with lightning speed. Miju, Sung Hyun, and Jeong are all stunned. Miju is furious, wondering how she possibly evaded the puppet. Here's what happened. Miju had to rush her illusion spells to keep up with So Hyun's speed, and the incomplete spells had a critical flaw. The sound design was imperfect, the attacks were invisible, but So Hyun could hear them coming. It was a weakness that should have been obvious from the start, but her own fear had kept her from noticing. Now that the fear is gone, so is Miju's advantage. So Hyun fires back, destroying one of the summoned creatures on contact. Miju realizes the fear is completely gone and tries to trap her in a silent spell. But a massive projected image of So Hyun appears, radiating an aura so powerful that Miju physically recoils. She starts trembling. The queen's voice echoes. So Hyun's power is charm, the kind that overcomes fear. Miyu fires an energy blast anyway, but So Hyun is fighting with a full heart now and she's not backing down. The blast connects, but So Hyun keeps moving. Miyu looks at her own hand. The statue representing her in the arena has lost its arm. A symbol glows in So Hyun's eye and Miju finally understands she's losing. Then Miju does something nobody expected. She surrenders. The official announcement confirms it. Gee, So Hyun wins. The girl just stands there for a second, processing. Then it hits. She won. She sprints to her brother screaming, asking if they recorded it. Sung Hyun tells her nobody records things like that anymore. She pouts, saying it's a shame, and then she collapses straight into his arms. Total shutdown. 0 battery remaining. She passed out cold, sleeping like a baby after burning every drop of energy she had. Sung Hyun holds her in silence, then Miju opens her mouth. She accuses him of breaking the rules, saying the fight was hers, and she only lost because he interfered. Sung Hyun's eyes go dark. He tells her to take that back. She asks what she should take back, and he fires back asking what kind of duel that was. He says it was supposed to be a training match, not a psychological torture session. He says she deliberately targeted his sister's trauma and that she knew exactly what the rules were. Miju smirks and says he wouldn't understand. She calls him a Nepo baby and says his kind never gets it. Jeong grabs Sung Hyun before he can do something the entire industry would witness. He warns him not to act in front of the crowd. Miju turns on her heel and walks away. Internally, she's fuming. She admits So Hyun showed more grit than she expected, but she consoles herself thinking the Shinsung group still got what they needed from the event. She leaves the arena not realizing she just made the single worst mistake of her academy career. Because Sung Hyun is watching her go with the kind of quiet, seething fury that doesn't explode immediately. It calculates, it plans, it waits, and right there, he swears that Miju is going to pay for every single thing she did. Danmo runs up to congratulate So Hyun on the win, but she's told the champion is currently unconscious. Sung Hyun asks Danmo to watch his sister because he's heading to the armory to borrow a weapon. A student nearby laughs, saying maybe he'll find something useful in the armory's trash. Danmo tells him to stay and watch Subin and Woo Jin's fight, but Sung Hyun slams the door and leaves without looking back. Danmo mutters that he acts like the main character. Then under her breath, she says it's his loss because she was going to tell him Subin was holding back on the ship. Match 13 is announced. Subin Seol versus Woo Jin Jae. Meanwhile, Sung Hyun walks into the armory and nearly gives Purium a heart attack. Purium asks what he's doing there, and Sung Hyun says he's here to rent a weapon. He asks about his friend's presence, and Purium says he's also picking up an item. Then Purium learns who Sung Hyun's opponent is, a returnee. He panics, says the boy never takes the easy road. Sung Hyun asks about the returnee girl's sword, and Purium confirms he knows it well. The school doesn't just hand out legendary weapons to anyone, and he personally handled it last year. Sung Hyun's eyes light up. He asks what weakness they can exploit. Purium explains that the Hongyan's energy arts can fire in any direction except directly behind the user. The back is always exposed. Sung Hyun is intrigued, but then asks why the technology doesn't just pass the energy harmlessly through the user's body. Purium freezes. Then he goes off. He starts screaming about how this isn't a comic book. Engineers don't break the laws of physics. He launches into a full-blown rant about the complexity of magic core engineering, the programming logic required, the power capacity limitations. Sung Hyun surrenders immediately and admits defeat in the argument. Purium calms down and explains that magic engineering is like programming. Every device has activation rules and capacity limits. That means the Echo Slicer, the damage-reflecting sword, must also operate under specific conditions. There might be things it simply can't reflect. Sung Hyun stops walking and calls Purium's name. The engineer turns around. Sung Hyun has a grin on his face that says he just thought of something borderline evil. He asks for a favor. He says he needs to pick up a little something specific. Purium considers it and says it shouldn't be too hard, but he asks what the plan is. Sung Hyun says he wants to beat a returnee in a fair fight and screw over a certain someone at the same time. He calls it his grand master plan. Purium stares at him with the expression of a man who has been friends with a maniac for too long and can no longer be surprised. Back in the arena, the countdown for match 13 begins. 5 seconds. At 3, Subin summons multiple energy cubes around himself, ready for war. Woo Jin stands across from him with a sideways smile, looking completely relaxed, like he's waiting for a pizza delivery instead of a death match. Then out of nowhere, something slams into the ground with explosive force, catching Subin completely off guard. The announcer screams fight, and Woo Jin launches forward with everything he's got. Woo Jin is already behind Subin before the dust even settles. This man didn't walk up, he teleported through sheer disrespect. But let's rewind a few minutes to before the fight started. Subin actually thanked Woo Jin for accepting the match, which confuses the blonde. Subin explains that being the #1 freshman means everybody runs from him. Nobody wants the smoke. Woo Jin says he can't blame them since most people just want to survive the day. Subin asks if Woo Jin only chose him because he was the last one available. And Woo Jin hits him with one of the hardest lines in the whole series. He says there's no such thing as an easy day in the life of a true hunter. He tells Subin he might have all his little tricks, but nothing ever goes according to plan in this profession. Somewhere across the arena, Miju and Sung Hyun both sneeze at the same time. Hiriam says, "Bless you." Woo Jin finishes by saying his motto is simple: don't worry about what you can't predict. That's what being a hunter really means. Subin sits with that for a moment, remembering Sung Hyun's speech about goals, and with a genuine smile says he doesn't hate that philosophy at all. Back in the armory, Purium comments that the Subin versus Woo Jin fight is going to be a banger, but if he had to put money on it, he bet on Woo Jin. Sung Hyun questions this immediately. A repeating sophomore against the #1 freshman? That's a bad bet. Hiriam gives him a serious look and says normally he'd agree, but there are exceptions to every rule. He reveals that Woo Jin wasn't held back because he's weak. He was held back because of disciplinary issues. The boy is a walking year violation. If he wasn't constantly getting in trouble, he would have been the strongest sentinel in the entire second-year class. Let that sink in. This man's only weakness is that he can't stop being a menace to society. The fight is already cooking. Woo Jin launches a devastating kick that catches Subin off guard, but the white-haired kid manages to block at the last possible microsecond using one of his energy cubes. Danmo screams from the stands that he actually blocked it. But here's the thing, Subin didn't see the attack coming. He had no idea where Woo Jin was. What saved him was his spirits. Unlike a mage's puppets, which are directly controlled, Subin's water spirits have their own intelligence. They think for themselves. He trains them, gives them commands, and they execute autonomously. So even when Subin can't track a sentinel's insane speed, his spirits can react on their own. It's the difference between driving a car and having a self-driving car that also knows karate, but the cube cracks under the force, and then shatters. A gear sound echoes and suddenly a water aura wraps around Woo Jin. Subin retaliates with a pillar of water that nearly takes Woo Jin's head off. The blonde dodges but catches a scratch on his cheek. The girls in the crowd are whispering that Subin looks completely different from the kid on the ferry. Everything he throws is sharper, faster, more controlled. Woo Jin creates multiple water spheres and fires a barrage of attacks at Subin, who dodges the first wave but catches a blast head-on. He defends with another shield, but Woo Jin notices the crack forming and he's not even worried, he just grunts. This man sees structural damage on his opponent's defense and his only reaction is mild annoyance. Then he moves in and shatters the shield with a single blow. The girls in the crowd are eating popcorn, commenting that another defense bit the dust. Subin barely dodges and deploys his spirits for protection, but Woo Jin is grinning through the broken shield like a villain who just found the back door to the hero's base. Here's Woo Jin's entire combat philosophy, and it's beautifully stupid in its simplicity. Strategies are worthless. If you're strong enough, you just destroy everything between you and the win. No tricks, no elaborate plans, just overwhelming violence. Either you have the power, or you don't. He catches his breath and compliments Subin, saying it's no wonder he's ranked #1. Then he asks what's next, because he can tell Subin still has one spirit left. Subin's expression goes dark. He warns Woo Jin to remember that he asked for this. He says he didn't want to play this card, but there's no other choice. Then he summons not one but two elemental spirits, one in each hand. The audience goes nuts. Woo Jin is furious, screaming that he still had two left this whole time. He charges in anyway because that's just who he is as a person. Subin orders the Great Torrent, and the arena explodes with water. Woo Jin screams, asking if they've turned this place into a water park. He yells that Subin is the biggest show-off he's ever met, but admits the kid is way more trouble than he expected. Because Subin Seal isn't just the #1 freshman, he's an S rank, the rarest and most powerful classification there is. The scene goes underwater. Woo Jin opens his eyes and finds himself floating in an abyss surrounded by a massive school of fish. He looks around wondering if he's in the middle of the ocean. Then a dolphin swims up to him with the friendliest little squeak. Woo Jin stares at it, confused, and cautiously calls it buddy. The dolphin's expression goes flat, and it tells him to get a grip because they are not friends. Woo Jin's face is pure. Did that dolphin just trash talk me? Energy? His suit's safety system activates, deploying an oxygen helmet. The system announces that when the oxygen runs out, student Woo Jin Jae automatically loses. He's grateful he took a breath before the flood hit. The arena is now a massive cube of water. On the opposite side, Subin stands perfectly calm, breathing normally, because he has a pact with water spirits that lets him move and fight underwater like it's a Tuesday afternoon. For Woo Jin, every movement feels like trying to run through cement. The water pressure is crushing. He can barely get close, and Subin controls the entire battlefield. It's a perfect checkmate. Woo Jin can't use his full sentinel strength while swimming. He realizes that if Subin had gone all out from the beginning, the fight would have ended before it started. The fact that he held back was actually an act of mercy. Subin watches from his side of the aquarium with a smug, almost bored expression, knowing that as long as the water stays, he wins. In the stands, Sung-hyun is staring with his mouth open, wondering what kind of Old Testament flood this is. He knew Subin was strong, but this is a completely different level. Subin is radiating a sinister aura of total dominance. But inside the water prison, Woo Jin isn't panicking. He's concentrating. The audience starts whispering, wondering why he's just floating there, stalling for time. Sung-hyun is curious too, trying to figure out what Woo Jin is planning. Then he sees the look on Woo Jin's face and his eyes go wide. He screams that there's no way he's about to do that. He grabs So-hyun and yells that they need to evacuate now. He starts screaming for everyone to run. Inside the water, Woo Jin lowers his head. Energy starts gathering around him in a way that makes the entire arena vibrate. Subin smirks, admitting he has to give the rookie credit. This is what happens when you underestimate someone. But Woo Jin warns him that Sentinels have their own bag of tricks. The energy erupts. Jeong starts screaming in the broadcast booth, asking what the hell Woo Jin thinks he's doing. He desperately orders Subin to deactivate his ability immediately. Subin is confused, wondering why the order is for him to stop. Woo Jin just grins. Here's the science. Every physical object has a natural frequency. If you apply the exact same frequency as a vibration, the object shakes uncontrollably until it self-destructs. The water arena starts trembling violently. Woo! Jin's hands vibrate with terrifying power. Subin finally understands what's happening and his face goes white. Woo! Jin faces him and says the barrier is nothing but a wall, and walls are meant to be broken. This ability is called resonance, and with a sound like the world cracking in half, the water barrier shatters into a million pieces. A biblical flood crashes down on the audience. Everyone is drenched, confused, and screaming. A girl in the stands winks as water droplets cascade around her like she's in a shampoo commercial, while the rest of the crowd looks like they just got hit by a fire hydrant. Everyone looks up at the sparkling water falling through the arena lights, and despite the chaos, it's actually beautiful. Subin is lying on the ground in the middle of the destroyed arena, shell-shocked. Woo Jin walks up to him casually, compliments his technique, and says with a smile that Subin must be out of mana now, which means this is his clean win. But Jeong appears, helps Subin to his feet, and declares that Subin actually won. Woo Jin is disqualified for destroying school property. Subin says he's never heard of that rule. Jaeyoung starts cursing at Woo Jin for nearly drowning the entire student body. Sung-hyun watches from the stands, finally understanding why Woo Jin was held back. The man's power isn't the problem. His complete disregard for property damage and collateral casualties is. Getting suspended for bad behavior makes perfect sense when your finishing move involves turning the entire arena into an aquatic disaster zone. Luckily, the water evaporates quickly enough for the competition to continue. Jeong announces the next match, Jeong-yeon versus Aoyona, in the crowd. So Hae-yoon cheers at maximum volume, screaming that her brother is going to win. The other students are whispering, laughing, wondering what an F rank was thinking challenging a senior. They say he picked the wrong opponent. At that moment, Subin asks who the girl even is, and Purium is shocked he doesn't know. He explains that despite her calm appearance, Yona is hands down the wildest returnee at the academy. She went berserk at the end of last year and blew up an entire building by herself. Subin's jaw drops. He thinks about how Sung-hyun was never the brightest, remembering every single L the boy has taken since arriving. But he believed the kid had at least one functioning brain cell that would prevent him from doing something this stupid. All he can do now is pray the idiot has some kind of plan. The system asks both competitors to present their chosen weapons. Sung Hyun faces his opponent and says he needs to be completely honest before they start. Then he drops the revelation that has the entire arena gasping. He says she's not the only one with a red mist sword. Everyone is confused. Jiang is baffled. Sung Hyun explains that he did his research and that with a friend's help, he obtained the exact same weapon his opponent uses. Then, with peak disrespect, he asks in the most mocking tone possible if that's enough for a fair fight. Jiang can't fathom how this broke F-rank got his hands on a red mist in this economy, but he reminds himself that even without powers, Yona survived life or death situations in another dimension. She's not someone to underestimate. The weapons go on the registration conveyor belt. Both bags are placed for scanning. Sung Hyun touches a chain that glows blue during the process. Registration completes. The two grab their weapons and take positions with 20 seconds on the clock. Here's the twist. Sung Hyun's weapon is the red mist, the energy arc sword. Yona's weapon is now the echo slicer, the damage reflecting sword. The crowd is stunned. Woo Jin wonders why the echo slicer showed up again. Gango from Shinsung feels something is very wrong because the company wouldn't redeploy the same prototype. Miju's face goes pale as she immediately says this wasn't her doing. She tracks down Junel, who swears he didn't give the sword to Yona, but then he nervously admits he did lend it out. Just not to her. Flashback. Sung Hyun walked up to Junel earlier with the audacity of a man who has nothing to lose and everything to gain. He asked to borrow the fancy sword and Junel told him to get lost. But Sung Hyun played him like a fiddle. He said he overheard Junel complaining about not getting to show off the weapon properly during his own fight, so he proposed a deal. If Sung Hyun wins using the sword, it gets incredible publicity. If he loses, all the blame falls on the F rank, not the weapon. And as a bonus, cooperating might help Junel smooth things over with Miju. The guy literally had nothing to lose. He accepted. Then Sung Hyun went to Purium and asked him to find a weapon bag identical to Yona's. Back in the present, during the weapon registration, Sung Hyun used his chains to swap the two bags on the conveyor belt without anyone noticing. A magic switcheroo executed under the noses of every professor, scout, and guild representative in the building. Yona is now holding the echo slicer thinking it's her red mist. In the stands, Subin understands the swap but can't figure out the strategy. Jiang is thinking the same thing. If the goal was cheating, why not swap for a fake sword? That would force Yona to use her returnee powers, and then Sung Hyun's chains could seal them. The countdown begins. Sung Hyun notices Yona looks furious, but he tells himself this is necessary. An F rank needs every dirty advantage he can get. He remembers his father's words. Do your best. His eye glows with blue determination. The fight starts and Sung Hyun immediately fires a red energy arc at Yona. She blocks effortlessly and the echo slicer does exactly what it's designed to do. It reflects the attack straight back at him with full force. Sung Hyun barely dodges his own attack. Jiang is baffled since all she did was throw his power right back in his face. Even wounded, Sung Hyun admits she's faster than he expected, but says she's not hard to read. He charges in. Subin is in the stands confused about why someone with a ranged weapon is closing the distance. The swords clash. Sung Hyun spins and attacks again, but this strike is different. It's a physical hit, not an energy arc. The blow connects with Yona's arm dead on, and instead of reflecting, the energy from the echo slicer bounces the physical force away, leaving an opening. The audience erupts. Woo Jin screams, wondering why she couldn't deflect the energy arc this time. Danmo is confused because the physical attack ricocheted off her arm instead of the energy. And then Subin's eyes go wide. He finally gets it. He understands the genius of the entire plan. And F rank just landed a clean hit on a senior returnee. That might be the first time in the history of this academy. Sung Hyun's sword drops, but a chain yanks it back to his hand. He warns her, one arm down, now for the other. Cut to Ju Young Lee, Sung Hyun's old master, watching from somewhere else entirely. He stares at a portal and says he always knew the kid had something special, not talent that screams in your face, but something hidden, something that only reveals itself under pressure. He thinks the moment of truth has arrived, now or never. Back in the arena, the swords clash again with red sparks flying. Yona blocks hard, but Sung Hyun fires another energy arc that she can't parry. Jiang starts to understand why. Sung Hyun is reverse engineering the weapon in real time. He's breaking down its code. He remembers that the echo slicer went limp like a wet noodle when Danmo's spoon touched it during the earlier fight. That means the weapon operates on specific rules, like a program. Every magical device has limitations based on reality and the imagination of whoever built it. No single weapon can counter every power, because no two awakened abilities are identical. The Echo Slicer's programming is simple. It absorbs incoming force and releases it in the opposite direction. It's a reverse card forged into a sword, and now that Sung Hyun knows the code, he can hack it. He charges forward. Yona braces in a defensive stance. His plan requires perfect timing. At the exact moment the swords connect, he fires a red energy arc at maximum power. But here's the insane part. He aims the attack at himself. The Echo Slicer absorbs the energy and, following its own programming, spits it right back at the closest target, which is now Yona. She takes her own weapon's reflected energy point blank. Both fighters are thrown across the arena and crash onto the floor. The audience is stunned into silence. Danmo and her friend can't process what they just witnessed. This man used the enemy's weapon against her by attacking himself through it. That is some four-dimensional chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Sung-Hyun's eye glows. He screams that it's not over and charges before Yona can recover. He swings relentlessly, forcing her to keep defending with the very weapon that's now her biggest liability. He knows the power gap is enormous. She's a veteran who survived another world. He's an F rank who learned his ability type 2 weeks ago, but timing and precision are all he needs. If he gets the rhythm of the clashes exactly right, the Echo Slicer will keep betraying its own user. The swords crash together again and again. He thinks about every moment that led him here. The loneliness, the rejection, the teachers who mocked him, the students who refused to be his partner, his father looking at him with disappointment. Failure was never an option. He erupts with a furious scream, pouring everything into the assault. Jiang watches the red energy and finally understands the full plan. He remembers the destruction that energy caused in Danmo's fight. A relieved smile crosses his face. He always knew he picked the right kid. Hagiwara realizes that the weapon designed to protect Yona has become her greatest weakness, unless Sung-Hyun's entire strategy was to force her into using her returnee powers. In the stands, even Subin is watching with wide eyes. He notices something about Sung-Hyun's glowing blue eye. It's the same look his father has. Danmo excitedly grabs So-Hyun, telling her that her brother is absolutely destroying it. She starts saying he might actually win, but she stops mid-sentence because So-Hyun doesn't look happy. She looks terrified. She whispers that something is wrong with her brother. He looks sad, and across the arena, Yona begins to recite a strange incantation. Sung-Hyun throws himself backward. Jiang's expression drops as he realizes the boy just made a catastrophic mistake. He pushed too hard. Yona Ao, the regressor, finally unleashes her true form. Flashback to the armory. Purium is confused, asking how forcing Yona to use her powers helps Sung-Hyun win. Sung-Hyun summarizes the plan. He wants to beat a returnee and screw someone over simultaneously. Purium asks who the second target is. Sung-Hyun just gives him this evil, knowing smirk. Back in the arena, Gango from Shinsung calls out to Matteo with urgency in his voice. He says they need to stop this fight right now. Matteo doesn't understand until Gango screams that the returnee is using a prototype sword that hasn't been released to the market yet, a weapon she shouldn't even have. And she's getting embarrassed with it in front of half the hunter industry watching live. Matteo goes pale, realizing the magnitude of the disaster. Gangho's phone rings. It's Miju on the other end, sarcastically asking if they're enjoying the show at the company's expense. Then she explodes, screaming at them to shut it down immediately. The man on the other end is spiraling, saying if the returnee loses while holding their unreleased product, the stock price will crater. Miju hangs up on him mid-sentence. She clutches her phone, realizing she's the one who begged her father to let her handle this product presentation. If he finds out she bungled it this badly, her credibility is finished. Then it hits her. She remembers Sung-Hyun's face. She wonders if this was his plan all along, but she doubts it because if he just wanted to win, he could have swapped the sword for literally anything else. He didn't need the Echo Slicer specifically. Unless she finally sees the full picture. He didn't just swap the weapons to fight the returnee, he swapped them to put the Shinsung group's unreleased prototype on live display in a fight it was losing. He turned their own corporate scheme against them. The weapon they planted for publicity is now getting destroyed on camera. Sitting there like someone who just realized they lost a chess game 15 moves ago, Miju sees. She calls Sung-Hyun a treacherous snake. She's been completely outplayed by an F rank. Elsewhere, Matteo asks Gangho what the plan is. Gangho says he knows the building layout and could set the whole place on fire to stop the match. Matteo nearly passes out, asking if this man is seriously suggesting arson. He says that's crossing a line even for a corporation. Gangho looks at him and asks since when has the Shinsung group ever cared about lines. In the arena, Yona unleashes everything. Her full returnee power activates. Sung-Hyun braces himself, knowing this attack could end him. She remembers that she's fought before, survived before, and she's not going to hold back. She tells him to keep his eyes wide open. He grits his teeth, knowing he cannot take this hit under any circumstances. But the attack never comes. Yona stops mid-strike. The energy is gathered. Her arm is raised, but she just stands there, trembling, unable to release it. The crowd is bewildered. Woo Jin has no idea what's happening. Danmo wonders if she froze. Yona keeps building power but can't pull the trigger. Sung-Hyun starts sweating as a horrible realization dawns on him. He thinks about his sister. About how So-Hyun was paralyzed by fear of her own power, and he asks himself why he ever assumed Yona was different. Why he thought she chose not to use her abilities when maybe she's just as terrified of them as So-Hyun was. And suddenly he feels like the worst person in the arena. A flashback shows a man approaching Yona on a bench after the building incident. He asks if she doesn't speak because she won't or because she can't. He explains that returnees from other worlds never have communication problems there because the translation ability automatically converts everything they hear and say. But he theorizes that the power glitched on her return trip. She can now only speak the language of the other world. Nobody in her home dimension can understand a word she says. She responds in a language that sounds beautiful but is completely incomprehensible. He offers a different solution. He invites her to a school where there are others like her. A place where words aren't the only way to communicate. She arrives at Scion Academy looking lost and fragile, but when she sees other students with powers, a glimmer of hope appears. The flashback explains that Yona was known as the wildest returnee. She blew up a building and was so terrified by what she'd done that she withdrew completely. Nobody could reach her. She barely seemed human, until someone found her in the wreckage and saw a person, not a monster. Gangel asks Medio what a hunter needs most to survive. Then he says something unexpectedly wise. Don't let rules get in the way of common sense. Sung Hyun internalizes that lesson. He shouldn't be bound by limits. In the arena, Yona is crying. She's afraid of her own power, and Sung Hyun realizes this isn't the victory he wanted. Not like this. In a move that makes absolutely everyone in the building question his sanity, he throws his sword onto the arena floor, just tosses it. The red mist clatters across the ground. He thinks he should have recognized the fear from the beginning. Winning against someone who's too scared to fight would make him no better than a cheater. It would taste like ash. It would remind him of his sister's pain. He thinks about everything Jiang taught him and makes a decision. He screams. He yells that he's sick of the stalling. He shouts that he hates his own powers too. And then he asks the simplest question in the world. Are they going to fight or not? He remembers the lesson that there are other ways to understand someone even without words. And across the arena, Yona looks at him. Really looks at him. And even though she can't speak his language and he can't speak hers, something passes between them. An understanding that transcends words. The red energy in her arm begins to fade. The announcer warns there's 1 minute left, and then Yona charges toward him, not with fear, not with hesitation. She rushes forward, ready to fight for real, on her own terms, with her own power. Yona wonders if he gave up, if he was aiming for something, or if he threw the sword away because of her. Sung Hyun is staring right back, equally confused, wondering why she also tossed her weapon. Both of them are standing there with the same unspoken question bouncing between them like a ping-pong ball in an empty room. Why? But neither has time to philosophize because the clock is ticking and their bodies are already moving. They set the confusion aside and do the only thing two stubborn fighters know how to do. They charge. Sung Hyun lunges with his fist cocked. Yona mirrors him perfectly, winding up her own counter. He throws a kick that she blocks with her arm, and the impact jolts through her whole body. He pushes through the exhaustion, sweat flying off his face. She retaliates with a punch that connects clean, snapping his head back. Her eyes glow with intensity, but the strain is visible. He grits his teeth and keeps swinging. They're exchanging blows in a blur, raw hand-to-hand combat with zero magic, zero weapons, just two beaten-down fighters refusing to fall. She lands a brutal hit that sends him staggering backward. He fires back with a kick to her side that makes her twist from the force. He screams and throws another attack. She counters with a devastating kick that launches him through the air like a human cannonball. Both of them freeze for a second, stunned by how intense their own fight has become. Yona sends him flying again. She taunts him, saying his energy is too weak. She mocks his rank. Her eye glows as she summons spectral chains of her own and binds him mid-air. Sung Hyun is completely bewildered because he can't understand a word she's saying, but the chains are doing the talking just fine. She strikes him with glowing chain attacks from above, while So Hyun and Danmo watch from the stands in absolute horror. Sung Hyun crashes to the arena floor, creating a cloud of debris. He lies there, sweating, panting, every muscle screaming. His stamina burned through faster than he expected from all the precision work earlier. He's got maybe 1 or 2 chain uses left in the tank, tops. He regrets throwing away the sword. Then he wonders again why she threw hers away too, but he shakes it off. No time for that. A memory surfaces. A younger Sung Hyun, face bruised, applying a bandage after another fight. A friend telling him that if he keeps brawling with everyone, he'll never make friends. Young Sung Hyun sitting alone in an empty room declaring he doesn't need friends, he doesn't need anyone. He'll become a hunter by himself. Back in the present, he realizes his training never covered hand-to-hand combat. He had no idea Yona was this good at close quarters. The question keeps circling. Why did he drop the sword? He grabs his head, genuinely unable to explain his own decision. A vision of his younger self sits beside him on a bench. The kid reminds him of every selfless thing he's done, warning Danmo, saving his sister from Miju's illusions, running into chaos at the hospital. The older Sung Hyun stares at the memory of himself, struggling to understand why he keeps doing things that don't benefit him. He lies on the ground, exhausted, and Yona stands above him, equally wrecked. She looks down with a strained expression, silently asking if they should keep going. He looks back up with the same question in his eyes, and the narrator says something that hits different. Even without sharing a language, there are things people can understand about each other. Some connections don't need words or strategy or profit calculations. Yona's expression shifts to something unexpected. Gratitude. She thanks him for waiting, for understanding without being told. Sung-hyun, barely able to stand, declares he's ready to keep fighting. She clenches her fist with the same resolve. They clash again, fists meeting in a burst of energy. Rapid blows fly between them, each one fueled by desperation and something deeper than rivalry. He lands a devastating kick that sends her reeling. She pushes through the pain. Professor Hagiwara watches with a thoughtful expression. The pain seems to melt away as both fighters rise again, renewed. A blur of motion, Sung-hyun connects with another powerful strike, and people in the crowd who've never heard of him start asking who this kid is. Someone in the stand says there's no way he's actually an F rank. Yona, despite everything, is feeling something she hasn't felt in a long time. The thrill of a real fight. A younger Sung-hyun once convinced himself he didn't need anyone, but in the present, with sweat pouring and his body breaking, a new realization hits. He admits he kept turning his back on people because he was afraid of being hurt, afraid of being rejected again. He remembers sitting alone in empty classrooms, eating alone in cafeterias, walking through hallways nobody noticed him in. But deep down, he always wanted to fight alongside someone, to share the weight instead of carrying it alone. Yona's eyes explode with purple energy, her power fully unleashes. Despite being bound by his chains, she raises her arm and lands a blow so powerful it pushes through his restraints. Sung-hyun's eyes go wide as her glowing fist connects. She's stunned too, realizing her injured hand is suddenly working again. She questions whether it healed or whether she was holding back without knowing it. Red energy erupts from her arm as she realizes Sung-hyun's chains have been doing something to her this entire time. He stands there, exhausted, chains still active, having pushed her to the absolute edge. Then he does something that nobody expects. He reaches out and takes her hand. He thanks her. Eyes closed, sweat dripping, overwhelmed by everything they just shared without sharing a single word. Yona stares at him, a completely new emotion crossing her face. Her hand glows with blue energy. She says something, and it comes out in perfect, clear Korean. She's shocked. He's shocked. His chains didn't just suppress her power. They suppressed the language curse. For the first time since returning from the other world, Yona just spoke her native tongue. Sung-hyun unleashes a final attack, chains glowing with everything he has left. So Hyun and Danmo watch in disbelief. Woo Jin smirks, Subin stares with wide eyes. Yona collapses from exhaustion just as the system announces that time has expired. Sung-hyun stands there, equally spent, shocked that it ended so suddenly. The announcer steps forward, microphone in hand, and gives a subtle nod of approval. The word winner flashes, and the name that follows makes the entire arena erupt. Ji Sung-hyun, the F rank. The nobody. The kid everyone laughed at, rejected, mocked, and wrote off as dead weight. He lets out a scream that comes from somewhere so deep it doesn't sound like celebration, it sounds like vindication. Yona's statue lies shattered on the ground, proof that this wasn't a dream. Students are cheering. The UG Guild hunters, Du Ji-won and Du Jinwook, look at each other with interest and note that the Shinsung representatives have mysteriously vanished from the stands. Sung-hyun helps Yona to her feet as Hagiwara officially declares the result. Then Hagiwara asks Jeong to open the arena wall, but Jeong's face goes pale. Something is wrong. The wall won't open. Hagiwara's expression twists with shock, demanding to know what's happening. He asks Jeong to speak Korean because the panic is making him switch languages. The arena floor starts cracking. Sung-hyun and Yona exchange a confused look as the fractures spread beneath them. Jeong looks terrified. Hagiwara wonders aloud if the Shinsung group is behind this. Then massive shadowy hands erupt from the ground, tearing through the arena floor like something from a nightmare. So Hyun and Danmo are screaming. The huge guild hunters go dead serious. Sung-hyun stares in disbelief as a towering, headless, muscular monster with a void for a face pulls itself out of the earth. This thing is enormous. Medio recognizes it immediately and screams one word. Asura! Hagiwara transforms! A strange purple energy consumes him, and he uses a cursed technique to broadcast his thoughts directly into every mind in the arena. He explains with compressed telepathic speed that Asura was an experimental monster kept underground for research. It's escaped. He orders an evacuation and warns everyone to expect headaches from the data dump. So Hyun is bewildered that she can understand a mental message that feels like a foreign language. Hagiwara gives specific orders. Most hunters assist with evacuation, but 3 individuals get a very different command. Jeong, Yona, and one specific instruction that makes the room freeze. Protect Ji Sung-hyun at all costs. Blood trickles from Hagiwara's mouth as the curse takes its toll. Here's what they're dealing with. Asura was discovered in 1991 at an errant gate in Busan, a headless, massively muscular entity with infinitely flexible limbs and regeneration that makes Wolverine look like he needs a first aid kit. Its attack range is absurd. And here's the kicker. When Asura dies, it self-destructs. In 91, that explosion killed 4 hunters and nearly took out a 5th. Medio realizes that killing Asura might save Yona and Jeong, but there's an F-rank student still trapped inside with no barrier protection. The evacuation plan is clear. Get the students out. Use resonance to crack the barrier. Rescue Sung-hyun, then combine forces to kill Asura. Simple on paper, impossible in practice. Matteo is fighting the monster directly, screaming at Yona to use her golem ability to buy time. She's paralyzed with fear, tears streaming, remembering the last time she lost control and destroyed a building. Matteo screams at her to stop thinking and just act. He vows to take full responsibility for whatever happens, and something in that declaration breaks through. Yona summons her golems. Dozens of small rock constructs materialize around her. Then she gathers the fragments and builds a giant golem, massive enough to engage Asura head-on. She couldn't use this move before because she was worried about catching Sung-hyun in the crossfire, but now the golem is the distraction and Sung-hyun can fight freely. Something awakens inside Sung-hyun. His chains, previously weak enough to get mocked by everyone who saw them, now crackle with power that doesn't match his rank. He fires an energy blast from the red mist sword. Yona, now holding the Echo Slicer, deflects an incoming attack. His spectral chains tear through one of Ashura's massive limbs. The monster recoils. He charges across the destroyed arena, body glowing blue, chains erupting everywhere. Ashura's arm swings at him and his chains rise to meet it, shattering the limb on contact. The chains wrap around the monster's colossal body, binding it in place. Everyone watching is stunned. His power output has skyrocketed. His chains are stronger. His physical abilities are amplified. Observers wonder if this is a reawakening, the rare phenomenon where a user's rank permanently increases. But an experienced eye notes this feels different. There's no typical fluctuation, just raw, unexplainable power. Sung-hyun himself doesn't know what's happening, surrounded by blue energy, asking himself what this new force is. Matteo and Yona keep fighting alongside Jeong. The three of them assault Asura relentlessly, trying to prevent its regeneration. Matteo even cheers for Sung-hyun, joking that he wishes the kid applied this much effort to his tests. They unleash a combined attack. But just as they think it's working, Ashura's limb explodes. The thing can self-destruct individual body parts without dying. Matteo screams because Sung-hyun is now completely defenseless after the blast. Then a golden explosion rips through the arena. A mysterious figure in a hat reading from a glowing book commands everyone to clear the area. The blast is surgical, contained, impossibly precise. Matteo freezes when he realizes who it is. The mysterious figure removes his disguise. It's Shinbek-ji, the hunter of hunters, Sung-hyun's father. He proposes cutting a hole in the barrier just big enough for one person. Matteo says that kind of precision is impossible with commercial-grade barrier tech. Then he looks at who's suggesting it and shuts up. A precise portal opens in the ceiling. Shinbek descends from it like a god stepping off his throne, glowing book in hand. Sung-hyun stares up at his father, asking if he was watching the whole time. Shinbek confirms he saw everything. Then, because he wouldn't be Shinbek-gi if he gave a compliment without a caveat attached, he tells his son he's still far from ready. Says the student council is out of his reach at this level. Sung-hyun looks down, hearing the same words he's heard his entire life. But then, a defiant smile crosses his face. He looks up and asks his father one question. He asks if he notices that dad isn't saying it won't work anymore. He's saying not yet. And that's a very different thing. Shinbek looks at his son, and for the first time, his expression cracks, just barely, just enough. The aftermath is handled. The damage, considering a giant monster broke out of an underground lab, is surprisingly minimal. Danmo helps Yona walk. Shinbek looks away, knowing the school is about to face public hell for this. And behind closed doors, the investigation begins. Hagiwara reveals the monster escape wasn't an accident. Asura was being controlled by someone. The trail leads to a Shinsung Guild member, specifically a hunter named Matteo, who possesses the rare ability to control monsters. The UJ Guild immediately accuses Shinsung of orchestrating everything to cover up their product's failure at the open class and damage the UJ-branded arena, but Shinbek steps in with an alibi. He reveals he already detained the real culprit before the situation escalated. The principal declares it an act of terrorism and demands both guilds cooperate on security. Then Shinbek drops the real bombshell. There's a spy inside the school. Whoever released Asura knew its exact location in the underground facility. That means the traitor is an insider. Later, Gangho calls someone on the phone, relieved he dodged suspicion. Matteo also calls, grateful that Shinbek's presence kept the heat off him. But then the scene shifts to a dilapidated room, and we see the real Matteo, tied up, bloody, beaten. The person who's been walking around the academy using his face is an imposter. A dark-haired woman asks the fake Matteo if he's done with his call. She presses him about controlling Asura, confirming he received the monster's location from their contact. The imposter admits Shinbek's watchful eye made things tricky, but the job got done. The real Matteo, bound and terrified, tries to correct his captor about his full name. The woman explains they needed a Shinsung member's identity, and his similar name and monster-controlling ability were convenient bonuses. The imposter leans in close to the real Matteo with a sinister grin, confirming he's memorized the face of his next target. Then the imposter walks out, clean and composed, descending the stairs with the confidence of someone who just opened a new save file. He declares his intention to completely overturn the Hunter School. This is not over, not even close. Meanwhile, Shinbek confronts Subin in a park. The white-haired boy demands to know if the legendary hunter remembers him. Shinbek's expression stays calm, but the memory behind his eyes is violent. The Mappo incident, the pink-hued destruction, his own daughter crying, the void-faced monster. Sabin asks if Shinbek remembers the child who survived that day. Then he asks the question that's been eating him alive for 7 years. Why? Why did he kill those people? Why did he kill Subin's sister? Shinbek asks if the question comes from genuine curiosity. Subin screams that he wants the truth from the man's own mouth. Shinbek answers, the monster that day was called Legion, an S-class entity with a horned skull face that could infinitely divide its own body. Regeneration beyond anything Asura could dream of. When Shinbek arrived, one legion had already become thousands. For everyone he killed, 3 more split off. The only way to stop the exponential multiplication was to destroy the entire surrounding area. Says he made a rational choice. Subin screams that there's nothing rational about it. He declares he'll become a hunter to tear down the entire system. Shinbek looks up at the sky and calmly acknowledges his resolve. Subin demands an apology. For his sister, for himself, for everyone who died. Shinbek refuses. He explains that a real apology requires 3 things: acknowledging the wrong, feeling remorse, and promising never to do it again. He says he can't make that 3rd promise, because if the same situation happened again, if an entire city was at stake and the only way to save everyone was to sacrifice one island, he would do it again. Without hesitation, Subin attacks. The two clash in a brutal exchange of crystal magic and raw legendary power. Subin manages to bind Shinbek in glowing shackles and launch him skyward with a water geyser. He stands over the dazed hunter surrounded by crystals, confident he's won. But Shinbek breaks free and sends him crashing to the ground with one devastating counter. The power gap is clear. Subin lies in the dirt, drenched in sweat and tears, asking if that choice was really the best he could do with all that power. Shinbek tells him to come to the school's internship program. Subin furiously asks why he should. Shinbek says failing to seize an opportunity is a sign of inexperience. He walks away, leaving one final piece of advice. Don't be picky about the methods if you want to achieve your goals. Time passes. Things at the academy start to settle. Sung Hyun's reputation shifts after the open class. Students who wouldn't look at him before are now studying with him in virtual training rooms. His team scores a 98 on a simulated hunt, so Hyun is adapting too. Girls who avoided her are approaching with apologies. Sung Hyun even delivers a direct warning to Miju, saying if she ever tries anything again, her secret crush on Woo Jin might accidentally end up on the school's Blue Cube network. Miju nearly has a stroke, but Sung Hyun isn't celebrating. He's training obsessively, practically living in the training hall. Mo Dan and Woo Jin invite him to eat chicken. He declines. He's struggling with energy manipulation and won't stop until it clicks. The clock reads 9 p.m. He's been at it since morning. His concentration is failing. He decides to pack it in and head back to the dorm. But when he looks up, Yona is sitting across from him in the training space, eyes closed, completely silent. He's surprised. He doesn't know how she feels about him after the fight and the dirty weapon swap. He's about to apologize when she suddenly lunges at him with killing intent. He barely gets his chains up in time. She blasts him with energy and he's on full defense. Then she stops. She's holding a piece of paper. She asks him what day it is, demands the exact month, day, and day of the week. When he answers wrong, she corrects his grammar. She's using his chains as a translation device. Touching them lets her speak clearly. She apologizes for the observation class and then says if he wants her forgiveness, he has to do her a favor. She leads him through the forest, connected by his spectral chain. Their dorm mates spot them and start secretly following like 2 detectives in a buddy cop movie, one of them tracking Sung Hyun's energy signature like a bloodhound. They arrive at a clearing where a 3rd-year returnee named Si-Che-A is waiting. This girl has pointed elf ears, long blue hair, and she's literally non-human. She floats up in surprise when she sees Yona speaking Korean. Si-Che-A knows about Sung Hyun's chain ability from the school forums. She reveals that Yona used to be a singer before she was taken to the other world. When she came back, the language curse didn't just ruin her speech. It destroyed her ability to control her voice. She gave up singing entirely. Si-Che asks if Yona will sing again if they ever find a way to break the curse. Yona writes one word on her notepad. I will! Then Yona holds Sung Hyun's chain to her mouth. The chains suppress the curse, and for the first time since returning from the other world, Yona sings. Her voice fills the forest with a classical melody so beautiful that the 2 dorm mates hiding in the bushes are moved to tears. She sings about fate and suffering, the lyrics distorted by the fading curse but still raw with emotion. Si-Che applauds. Yona, embarrassed, says she used to be better. Sung Hyun says it was good, and he means it. Yona looks at him and thanks him sincerely. She says that because of him, she feels like she's found a small piece of who she used to be. Si-Che smiles and tells Sung Hyun that returnees are always treated like people who need saving. But he's different. He treated Yona like a person, not a problem. And that's something nobody else at this school has done. The dorm mates get busted. The blonde one threatens violence if anyone spreads rumors about what they heard. everyone scrambles. And just like that, the observation class arc comes to a close. But the story is far from over, because somewhere in the shadows, an imposter is wearing a dead man's face. A spy is hiding inside the school. A father refuses to apologize for the worst day of his son's enemy's life, and Sung-hyun, the F-rank nobody with chains weaker than a bicycle lock, just proved that he belongs in an academy full of monsters, geniuses, and gods. He still can't control his power. He still doesn't know what he's becoming. But for the first time, people are watching him not because he's a joke, but because they genuinely want to see what he does next. And if you want to see what happens next too, all you have to do is drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and let crimsonmanhwa know you want part 2. Because this kid's story is just getting started. And trust me, the chains haven't even begun to show what they can really do.